Chapter 7:13. But they're truly fighting for the war, for seizing the heavens, even if they have been despicable and despicable. But their goal was lofty and great. Why can't we give them a way out when we're at the end of the road? Even if we end up with the reputation of killing them after the war, for seizing the heavens, killing them at that time is still better than now. At the same time, it will increase our strength for the war, for seizing the heavens. Mei Shuiyan said loudly, "Aren't you also fighting for the war, for seizing the heavens? But you have never been despicable or despicable. Your goal is just as lofty, just as great. But they still use all sorts of methods to deal with you. When you were at the end of the road, did they let you go?" Jun Moxie sighed as he looked at Mei Shuiyan. In their hearts, such hatred can only be repaid with blood. A tooth for a tooth. A debt of blood can only be washed clean with fresh blood. If it were us, it would be the same. Girl, you're still too inexperienced. You're too stubborn today. Mei Shuiyan sighed, and her tone softened as she begged. Emo Xie, please let them go this time. For the war, for seizing the heavens, for the people of the world. Emo Xie, I'm begging you, be noble for once. Believe in humanity for once. No, talking about humanity with inhumane people is the most foolish thing to do. You've already been bound by the burden of the war, for seizing the heavens for too long. Why do you still want to be so foolish? Don't tell me that you'll only realize it when a tragedy happens in front of you. Jun Moxie shook his head slowly and resolutely, his face like a marble sculpture, cold and expressionless. In the future, I will also participate in the war for seizing the heavens. Jun Emo Xie slightly raised his head and looked at the drifting white clouds in the sky. Then he said leisurely, "But I hope to participate with my comrades and not with my enemies around me, because I don't feel at ease leaving my back to them. Last time in the heavenly south, humans fought Xian beasts, but it was full of betrayal and betrayal. I don't want to experience it myself. The war for seizing the heavens doesn't necessarily need the 3 holy lands." Jun Moxie said lightly, "Even if they all die, they're still me, Jun Moxie. Since I killed them, I will compensate them. I'm not doing this for the war for seizing the heavens, but to exterminate the strange races. This world will no longer have a war for seizing the heavens. It's not for the so-called nobility. I just don't want there to be so much hypocrisy in this world." Jun Moxie said sharply, "I hate hypocrisy. I am extremely disgusted, especially those who put on a noble appearance but unscrupulously harm others for their own selfish interests or narrow-mindedness. I don't just want to kill these people. When my strength is truly sufficient, I will also exterminate the 3 holy lands." Jun Moxie smiled lightly. The cold wind blew his hair, causing it to dance on this mountain peak. Just like that, he used an aloof attitude but a cold and emotionless tone and said lightly, "Because there's one thing you don't know. Actually, the greatest harm to this world is never external aggression, but internal strife. External aggression can never truly destroy a country or a world, but internal strife can very quickly destroy everything. And right now, the 3 holy lands have already become the source of internal strife. Even if Tian Fa is gone, you and I are gone, the 3 holy lands will still fight among themselves, fighting for the title of #1 in the world, and that supreme glory. Since that's the case, why don't this glory belong to me? So I must kill. My original intention was never for the sake of the so-called world's common people or the so-called peace of a continent. I am not that noble. But if others want to bully my head, I will not allow it. Not the 3 holy lands, not the strange races, not the venerables, not even the saints. Even if the 9 Nether first young master comes back to life, he can forget about dictating my fate." Jun Moxie smiled arrogantly and said word by word, "My fate is up to me, not up to the heavens. If we fight, then fight to the end. As long as we live, we must stand tall. If we die, naturally, everything will be over. I'm not a good person, nor a bad person. I am not a gentleman, nor am I a vile person. But at the very least, I will not be a hypocrite. I am the evil monarch, the monarch of all evil, the king of all evil. As mentioned above, this is the law of the evil monarch. Mei Shuyan took a step back. She was clear that there was no point in saying anything else. Her man was actually such a special person. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the person she was facing was not Jun Moxie, but the nine-nether first young master who did things his own way and dominated the world. This strange feeling made her feel fear, and even a little unfamiliar. Jun Moxie, who was standing opposite her, also seemed a little distant. Even if he felt wronged, even if he did not understand, but couldn't he just tolerate it for once? So Mei Shuyan did not understand. But she had neglected the fact that a seemingly benevolent tolerance could be exchanged for endless oppression, and her tolerance would be the best excuse for the enemy to press on, and they would become more and more unscrupulous. And a moment of soft-heartedness could cause the most irreversible despair and regret, because there was no such thing as benevolence between enemies. For example, if she had been able to kill all 10 experts the first time, then no matter how arrogant the people from the three Holy Lands were, they wouldn't have been so arrogant to this extent. Tolerance in the face of evil was the best breeding ground for evil. Regarding this point, Jun Moxie, who had lived 2 lives, understood it better than anyone else. So he would not give his enemies any chance or space to retaliate. No one could influence Jun Moxie's decision. Even if it was his beloved Mei Shuyan, he could not. On the opposite side, the experts from the three Holy Lands were already clamoring with grief and indignation. They all stood up and roared, as if they were ready to perish together with the enemy. Take revenge for venerable Mo. Take revenge for our dead brothers. Want us to commit suicide? Not so easy. Everyone, let's fight with them. Fight with our lives. Killing one is worth it. Killing 2 is worth it. Jun Moxie did not move. Ling Ling looked at them rushing over, her face like an ancient stone statue, indifferent and calm. He slowly raised one hand and looked coldly at the people from the three Holy Lands. Suddenly, he let out an earth-shattering roar. Kill! Kill them quickly. Don't leave a single one alive. Mei Shuyan closed her eyes in agony. Following Jun Moxie's order, which was filled with the scent of blood, a thunderstorm erupted in the air. 1,500 peak level 9 Xian beasts and beast kings attacked at the same time. Whether it was diving down or charging forward, all the Xian beasts charged forward with the force of a thunderbolt. They had been holding it in for a long time. The battle thirst in their blood was already boiling. What they needed was battle. Only battle. Endless battle. Battle to their heart's content. To them, it was not important whether the three Holy Lands were good or bad. In fact, it was meaningless. What did that war for seizing the heavens have to do with them? If you need us to go, we'll go. If you don't want us to go, we won't go. It's not a big deal. All they knew was that these people had hurt their brothers and wanted to kill their boss. That was a true, irreconcilable enmity. Only by tearing them apart would they be able to vent their anger. Screams rang out continuously. Jiaqing Yun let out a loud roar as he gathered his remaining strength and struck out with his palms, sending more than 10 beast kings flying. Drenched in blood, he charged towards Mei Shuyan and Jun Moxie, laughing loudly. What are you laughing at? Do you think you still have a chance to leave this place alive? Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. I'm laughing at the fact that you guys don't even know death is near at hand. Jiaqing Yun laughed maniacally and panted heavily. His face was a little sinister, but he said happily, "This old man used the last bit of Xianqi to come here just to tell you one thing. Do you think that the three Holy Lands only sent this group of people to deal with you? Ha ha ha! Jun Moxie, you've killed us today. So what if you can kill us all? You will pay the price for this. When you return to Tianxiang, you can go and cry for your grandfather's funeral." Ha ha! Nonsense. I'm afraid you guys don't have that ability. Jun Moxie said calmly. I know. This old man knows that your mysterious and unfathomable master is keeping watch in Tianxiang. But do you know who's going to Tianxiang? Ha! Jia Qingyun looked at Jun Moxie cruelly and said, "Yes, you're cruel, you're decisive, you're heartless. But the people going to Tianxiang are the saints of the three holy lands. A total of 9 saints. So what if your master is amazing? Can he cover the sky with one hand? Saints, do you know? Ha ha, ignorant child. What kind of earth-shattering character do you think your master is? Huh? No matter how amazing he is, can he be more powerful than 9 saints? You don't have to look at me like that. I'm sure the Jun family in Tianxiang City has already been turned into a pile of rubble. Your grandfather Junjian Tian has also become a pile of dead meat, emitting a stench. Ha ha! Jun Moxie, this is your retribution. Retribution. Jia Qingyun laughed maniacally. Mei Shuiyan's expression changed drastically. Jun Moxie's body flashed, and his hand moved like lightning, grabbing Jia Qingyun's collar. What you said, is it true? Jia Qingyun was already at the end of his rope. In order to get close to Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan, he had used up all his remaining strength. Facing Jun Moxie's grab, he had no strength to resist, but he had no intention of resisting. Being grabbed by Jun Moxie, he suddenly tilted his head and smiled cruelly. What do you think? What do you think? Protect your family? Let's see how you're going to protect them. After this battle, not only the Jun family, but all the forces here that have assisted the Jun family will not be able to escape the fate of having their families destroyed. I'll be waiting for your arrival in the Yellow Springs. That day won't be too long, haha. Before his laughter stopped, Jia Qingyun suddenly summoned his last bit of Xian Qi. His body trembled violently, and a series of muffled explosions rang out from his chest. He had actually destroyed his internal organs and died a violent death. His body hung limply in Jun Moxie's hand, but all signs of life had left him forever. But even though he was no longer breathing, the sinister smile on his face was still there. His gray eyes still flashed with a vicious light. Chapter 714. Jun Mo Xie's face darkened, and with a sudden roar, he raised his leg and kicked Jia Qingyun's corpse high up into the sky, straight into the clouds. He roared, "Kill! End the battle quickly. Kill with all your might. Kill without mercy." At this moment, a sharp whistling sound rang out in the air, and a thunderous voice roared, "Have mercy!" A yellow figure flew over from afar, as if riding on a cloud. His speed was extremely fast. Almost as soon as his voice rang out, his figure had already appeared in front of everyone. With a swoosh, he landed in front of Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan and shouted, "All of you stop." His voice was like thunder, shaking the entire sky and earth. But it was too late. By the time he landed, this one-sided bloody massacre was nearing its end. Big Bear and Long Crane grabbed the legs of the last 2 enemies and tore their bodies apart the moment he roared. Big Bear and Long Crane grabbed the legs of the last 2 enemies and tore their bodies apart. Jun Moxie roared, and the Xian beasts returned to their groups, their bodies covered in blood. The enemy's resistance was already at its weakest, and facing so many peak-level Xian beasts, there were almost no casualties, and they were completely annihilated. In fact, although there were close to 100 survivors from the 3 holy lands, only the 8 superior supreme experts on the surface still had some fighting power. However, they were still easily beaten into a meat patty by the beast kings that swarmed over. As for the Xian beasts, only a small number of less than 20 were lightly injured by the superior supreme experts' desperate counterattacks. This battle could be said to be a complete victory. The newcomer was dressed in yellow. His facial features were regular, and his beard was 3 inches long, floating in front of his chest. He had a head of black hair, and his face was like jade. He looked refined, with phoenix eyes and long eyebrows. But as he looked at the ground littered with corpses, his eyes revealed an inexplicable anger. He turned around and looked at Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan, and asked in a low voice, "Why did you kill? Why must you be so ruthless?" It was an interrogative tone. Facing over 1,000 Xian beasts and an expert like Mei Shuiyan, he didn't seem to care at all. "Why not? Since I've killed my enemies, I naturally have to exterminate them all. Wildfire can't be burned out, It will grow again when the spring breeze blows. Jun Moxie took a step forward and said in Lang Lang's words. Ever since he heard that 9 saints were going to Tianxiang, he felt a wave of oppression in his heart, and he was on the verge of going mad. At this moment, the man in yellow caught up to him and questioned him, causing Jun Moxie to vent his anger on him. But do you know how big of an impact it will have on the war for seizing the heavens if these people die? Do you know how serious the consequences will be? The yellow-robed man said angrily, You're also a member of the Xian continent. Could it be that these heroes of the war for seizing the heavens are so worthless in your eyes? Do you really have to kill him? What does the hero of the continent have to do with me? All I know is that they want to kill me. They're all my enemies. Since they're my enemies, what's the harm in exterminating them all? Jun Moxie looked at him coldly. Who are you? What identity and qualifications do you have to ask about this matter? Arrogant enough. You must be Jun Moxie of the Jun family, right? The man seemed to be suppressing his anger. This seat is the Misty Mansion's emissary. Emissary? Never heard of it. Jun Moxie shook his head. If there's nothing else, please leave. This seat still has important matters to attend to, and it's not convenient for outsiders to be present. Never heard of it? Then you're ignorant. The yellow-robed man snorted coldly. His self-restraint was originally very good, but he had traveled a long distance to come here with the intention of stopping this battle. Who would have thought that after exhausting himself to rush here, he would only see a ground full of corpses? An inexplicable anger surged up from his head in an instant. Hearing Jun Moxie's sarcastic words, he almost couldn't hold it in anymore. If not for that, with his self-restraint and identity, he would never speak like that. Taking in a deep breath and barely controlling his emotions, the yellow-robed man said, Jun Imo Xie, you've taken your revenge. You've vented your hatred. I hope that this matter ends here. The war for seizing the heavens is imminent, and both Tian Fa and the Holy Lands are the main forces of the war for seizing the heavens. It's better for us to let bygones be bygones. No problem. No problem at all. Jun Moxie smiled. As long as the 3 Holy Lands have no objections, this young master has no objections. No objections at all. Jun Moxie, the yellow-robed man's anger flared up again. You killed nearly 600 peak experts from the 3 Holy Lands in one go, and you even killed the brother of Palace Master Hermitage. How could they not have any objections? The forces here were close to a third of the 3 Holy Lands forces, but they were all destroyed. Xian cultivation is different from worldly wealth. The yellow-robed man furrowed his brows and said, It's normal for a poor man to be arrogant when he suddenly has money. Everyone can understand this, and even if they don't understand, they might not do anything. But if you become a nouveau riche in terms of Xian cultivation, the consequences will be very tragic. You must remember this point. You mean, I'm like a nouveau riche? Jun Moxie had an urge to strangle this yellow-robed man to death. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't tell the level of this person's Xian cultivation, Jun Imo Xie would have kicked this talkative fellow to the side long ago. This brother is just worrying about my family, and you're talking endlessly. It's fine if you're talking, but you're practically lecturing me. Who do you think you are? However, since he couldn't see through his cultivation, coupled with the earth-shattering aura he had when he first arrived, Jun Imo Xie guessed that this fellow's cultivation was not any lower than Mei Shui Yan's. In fact, he might even be higher. Such a strong enemy, and the identity of the Misty Mansion's emissary. At least for the time being, he couldn't provoke him. How do you look like a nouveau riche? The yellow-robed man frowned and looked at Jun Moxie. You're a complete nouveau riche. My God. Jun Moxie covered his forehead with his hand, a little speechless. What kind of person is this, to not give me any face at all? Is having a strong Xian cultivation and a strong background that great? Actually, whether it's Tian Fa or the 3 Holy Lands, everyone's goal is for the war for seizing the heavens and for the future of the continent. In my opinion, the Jun family should apologize to the 3 Holy Lands, and then I will mediate between the 2 sides. No matter how big the grudges are, they should be pushed to the end of the war for seizing the heavens. This way, there won't be any wars. Isn't that a good thing? The The yellow-robed man frowned and said. Jun Moxie was speechless. He was now extremely suspicious that this guy's brain had become stupid from practicing martial arts, or that he had been living in a misty mansion since he was young and was completely ignorant of the ways of the world. You think too highly of yourself. You just need to mediate, and even personally mediate? Who do you think you are? Apologize? The only thing I haven't done in my 2 lives is apologize. Not to mention that Jun Moxie was not willing to apologize. Even if he was really willing, the 3 holy lands would definitely not accept it. How could such a huge loss be covered up with just an apology? This was simply the biggest joke in the world. Moreover, Mo Wudao's younger brother had been forced to death by him. This hatred was absolutely irreconcilable. There was no other possibility other than war. Everything is for the war for seizing the heavens. Everything is for the common people of the world. The yellow-robed man said sincerely, I hope that Venerable Mei and Jun Sunshao can consider it. A thought of blessing, a thought of disaster, a thought of God or devil, a thought of choice. Ha ha, Sir Emissary, I only have one question for you. You're here to protect the strength of these 4 families, right? Jun Moxie suddenly lang laughed. Yes. The strength of the people participating in today's battle is enough to affect the final outcome of the war for seizing the heavens. I had no choice but to come, the yellow-robed man said. Then, have you been to Tianxiang City? Or rather, haven't any of you been there? Jun Moxie's eyes were like knives as he stared at the yellow-robed man. I haven't been there. The yellow-robed man's calm face finally showed some awkwardness. With the identity of an emissary, there is no need to deceive me. May I ask, Sir Emissary, do you know that the 3 holy lands have already sent a total of 9 saint-level experts to Tianxiang City? Jun Moxie's face instantly turned as cold as ice. Do you know why they're going to Tianxiang City? I know. The yellow-robed man's face was full of sweat, and his previous graceful demeanor was nowhere to be seen. Jun Moxie's judgment was very accurate. Although this person's Xian cultivation was high, he was not very understanding of the ways of the world. And so you don't care about that side. Because the people there are all ordinary people, they are not qualified to participate in the war for seizing the heavens, and they are not qualified to affect the outcome of the war. So you only care about the matters on our side, because the people here have the strength to affect the war for seizing the heavens. Your starting point is also good, and it's also glorious. It's for the continent, for the people of the world. Isn't that right? Jun Moxie asked. That's right. The yellow-robed man's expression changed. F*CK, the people of the world. F*CK, your grandmother's safety of the continent. What kind of bullsh*T logic is this? This is simply despicable, shameless, and filthy. Jun Moxie suddenly erupted. He took 2 steps forward and pointed a finger at the yellow-robed man, his spittle almost spraying all over the yellow-robed man's face. You still have the face to lecture me? Since you experts know so much about these things, why did you do it earlier? People are dying here, and there is a war. Isn't there a war there? Won't people die? Aren't the people of the world there? You still have the face to advise me to let go of my hatred? Do you know how you can say that? Hurry up and scram as far as you can. The yellow-robed man's body fluttered, and he inexplicably took a few steps back. His movements were smooth, but the expression on his face was extremely awkward. Jun Moxie, there's another reason for this matter. Moreover, this matter happened too suddenly. So how could I take care of everything in such a short period of time? As the saying goes, urgent matters must be handled according to urgent matters. After all, this is the most important matter here. This is something that can affect the final outcome of the war for seizing the heavens. Unfortunately, your so-called important matter has already ended, and the matter that isn't important to you is the most important matter to me. Chapter 7:15. For 1,000 words. For 1,000 words. The misty mansion, have been patrolling the world for tens of thousands of years. I have always been fair and impartial. Don't you trust this old man? The man in yellow said earnestly, making a final effort. The existence of the misty mansion was originally to restrict the actions of the three holy lands, to monitor their actions. Now, it is even more impossible for them to not accept my mediation. This I can guarantee. June Moxie could not help but finally understand why the three holy lands and the previous owner of the misty mansion had a falling out. So that's how it is. With such a huge force like the three holy lands, who would be willing to be supervised by others? But this guy was a little too naive. Someone just asked casually, and he said everything. And he was honest, as if he didn't even know how to lie. It seemed like the misty mansion was an extremely monotonous world. There were no worldly struggles or intrigues. Even if there were, it was relatively few. Perhaps only a pure place like this could produce such a person. June Moxie's heart was enlightened. If that's the case, then the misty mansion may not be as difficult to deal with as I had imagined. Always fair, patrolling the world? Then what happened to the June family 10 years ago? Do you know about it? June Moxie looked at him mockingly. This kind of worldly, trifling matter is not convenient for us to intervene. June Sun Shao, if there is injustice in the world, we will intervene. Even if we want to, we are powerless. The man in yellow hesitated for a while before reluctantly answering. You have your reasons for saying this. I understand. Okay, then I will tell you now. What I am doing is the follow-up to this worldly, trifling matter. June Moxie said, everything is because of that matter 10 years ago. Since you did not intervene then, there is no need to intervene now. There is no reason for you to intervene. Please go and take care of your important matters. We will not send you off. Have a safe journey. The man in yellow stood rooted to the ground. Ever since he appeared in Jianghu, as long as he said that he wanted to save the world, he would be able to convince the other party. After all, even if everyone knew that it was impossible for them to become heroes of the continent, no one was willing to become a sinner in history. They would rather stand against the humans themselves. Coupled with his valiant strength and superb xianxi, everything had always been smooth sailing. No matter what he did, it was always smooth sailing. It could be said that he had never failed in any of his endeavors until he met June Moxie today. Only then did he realize that there was such a person in this world who wouldn't be moved by force or persuasion. But this is for the war for seizing the heavens 2 years later. The war for seizing the heavens is related to the future of mankind. The man in yellow looked at June Moxie angrily. How can you be so oblivious to the bigger picture? Yes, actually I'm also doing this for the war for seizing the heavens. I would like to ask, you won't be participating in the war for seizing the heavens, right? June Moxie asked. The yellow-robed man was taken aback and said unhappily, our misty mansion has never participated in the war for seizing the heavens. That's good. You see, I'm definitely going to participate in the war for seizing the heavens. But my current cultivation is very low. I'm afraid I'll die if I go. It's not a big deal if I die. Who doesn't die? But I'm afraid it will affect the big picture of the war for seizing the heavens. If that happens, the continent will be in danger, and the people will be in danger. June Moxie sighed and suddenly said, Sir Envoy, for the sake of the safety of the continent, for the sake of the people of the world, I'm begging you, please use the great empowerment technique and give me all your cultivation. I will not let you down. I will definitely deal a heavy blow to the strange races. I will seek blessings for the world and do my best for the people of the world. What do you think? June Moxie's face was full of virtue and prestige, and his entire body was holy and noble. Moreover, his attitude and words were sincere. The man in yellow almost fainted. He was completely dumbfounded by June Dashao's words. I do know about the great empowerment technique, but how can I do that? The man in yellow said in a daze. Even if you want to participate in the war for seizing the heavens, and your stand is commendable, but if I give you all my cultivation, won't I disappear immediately? For the sake of the war for seizing the heavens, for the sake of the people of the world, what's the harm in sacrificing yourself just once? June Moxie said solemnly, and his words were even more sincere. Sir Envoy, you won't be participating in the war for seizing the heavens anyway. Then wouldn't your exquisite Xian cultivation be wasted, and you'll rot along with the grass and trees? Wouldn't that be even more meaningless? Why don't you just sacrifice yourself now? That way, you can increase my chances of winning the war for seizing the heavens. This way, I believe the continent will forever remember your heroic deeds, and the people of the world will forever worship your heroic spirit. You will be the eternal hero of the world. How about it? You won't reject me, right? No, no. The man in yellow shook his head violently. How can I do that? This is simply nonsense. We can use other methods for the war, for seizing the heavens, but how can we use such a method that harms the interests of others? Especially when I've cultivated my entire life. How can it be easy? Absolutely not. No matter how flowery your words are, this matter is definitely not feasible. Really not feasible? June Moxie's expression turned serious, and he said bitterly, could it be that you're willing to become the center of history? Could it be that you have no sense of the big picture? Where's your conscience? Definitely not. The man in yellow wiped the sweat off his nose. I'm very sorry. I really can't help you with this. Then what are you here for? June Moxie sighed, and his tone changed as he asked indifferently. I'm here to persuade you and your families to temporarily stop fighting for the sake of the war, for seizing the heavens, for the sake of the people of the world, for the big picture. This. The man in yellow suddenly became dumbfounded. He suddenly realized that all his reasons, all his righteousness, had already been said once by this young man, and he had just rejected this noble request. Although the other party's request was really difficult, wasn't it the same for him to request the other party's request? Putting himself in their shoes, if he couldn't agree to the other party's request, then what reason did he have to request the other party? He let out a long sigh and turned to Mei Shuyan. Venerable Mei, what do you think? My thoughts are her thoughts. June Moxie said unyieldingly. This old man did not ask you. The man in yellow sighed and suddenly raised his arms slightly. A faint milky white mist slowly dissipated, but June Moxie suddenly found that he couldn't move. June Moxie couldn't help but be shocked. He was already a solid second-level venerable now, and there was actually someone who was able to restrain him in an instant without batting an eyelid. Just what level had this person's Xian cultivation reached? This kind of method was at least superior to Mei Shuyan's heaven and earth cage, and not just by a little. Mei Shuyan sighed lightly and bowed slightly. This venerable lord, Emo Xie, is right. What he said was equivalent to what I said. Emo Xie can make any decision on my behalf. No matter when, no matter what. I will always stand by his side. Even if it's related to the war for seizing the heavens, it will not be an exception. Venerable Lord. Mei Shuyan actually called this man in yellow Venerable Lord. The man in yellow laughed bitterly and said in a somewhat dejected manner, if that's the case, then this old man is the one asking for trouble. I'll take my leave now. After saying that, his body suddenly exploded into a dazzling light that filled the sky. The light disappeared in an instant, and the yellow figure also disappeared. Although Mei Shuyan didn't understand June Mo Xie's actions today, she still couldn't accept it. But she still chose to support him without any hesitation. Especially in front of outsiders, she would definitely not lose face for June Moxie. Hee, little Shuyan, so obedient, come, big brother will dote on you. June Moxie finally regained his freedom and immediately came over with a cheeky smile. In reality, the man in yellow seal only had an effect on him for a very short period of time. The moment June Moxie activated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, the seal was instantly lifted. But even so, young Master June's body still broke out in cold sweat. Because in that short period of time, just now, if the other party had wanted to take his life, he could have killed him at least 10 times over. Therefore, June Mo Xie secretly decided to be vigilant at all times in the future. After all, there's always someone better than you. Hearing Mei Shuyan's words, he couldn't help but feel touched. Thinking about how rude his words were just now, and how he had already killed all the people. It seemed like everything was fine now. He shamelessly came over to comfort her. Mei Shuyan snorted coldly and said, "Weren't you acting like a hero just now? Didn't you say women scram to the side? Why are you paying attention to a woman like me now? Aren't I stupid? It's fine if I'm stupid, but don't make the smart June Dashao stupid too." June Moxie chuckled and went behind her. His hands nimbly massaged her shoulders as he smiled apologetically and said, "Actually, I didn't finish my sentence. What I said was other than Shui Yin, all other women scram to the side. But in my hurry, I actually missed a few words. Really, please believe me." Mei Shuyan twisted her body and avoided his massage. Her face was as cold as ice. "Don't mind me." Jun Mo Xia snorted and laughed. Suddenly, his palms slid down like lightning and rubbed her plump buttocks. Then, he retracted his hand and stood there in a sanctimonious manner. His face was like that of a virtuous Taoist scholar or an old man with a serious and rigid expression. Mei Shuyan's body trembled, as if an electric current had passed through her. She felt her whole body go limp, and her face flushed red. Her body softened, and she fell backward. June Moxie hugged her and cried out in surprise, "Ayaya, what did you say? In public, this men and women shouldn't touch each other. This benefactor, please stand up quickly. This old monk is a pure person." Although he said he was pure, his two hands were hugging her tightly, and he wouldn't let go no matter what. Mei Shuyan was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She struggled and said, "Let go quickly. There are so many people watching." "Oh, that means when there aren't so many people watching. I can't let go? No problem. I can wait until that time." Jun Mo Xia laughed mischievously. Then, he blew a mouthful of air into her sparkling and translucent ears. Mei Shuyan's body went limp again, and she blushed. Still not letting go. Still not letting go. Another hot breath was blown over. June Moxie snorted and said, "Do you still dare to be so fierce in the future? Little guy, I can't teach you a lesson. Let go first, and then we'll talk." Mei Shuyan struggled with all her might. "Let go first." June Moxie was firm, and he wouldn't let go no matter what. The hot breath from his palm seeped into Mei Shuyan's clothes and seeped into her body. On the way to the Dongfang family, June Moxie had already figured out Mei Shuyan's weakness. Now that he was applying the medicine according to the prescription, this venerable Mei was panting and weak. "No, I don't dare." Mei Shuyan was helpless. She blushed and whispered in his ear. Her voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. "Good girl." Jun Mo Xia gave a satisfied smile as he patted her buttocks, and then let go. With a whoosh, Mei Shuyan scurried a few feet away before turning her head back, her face still flushed. When she turned around, she saw that all the Xian beasts were standing straight with their backs facing the two of them under the orders of the Beast Kings. They pretended that they didn't see anything, but their ears were standing straight. You really killed me." Mei Shuyan covered her face and ran in the direction of the Jun family. June Moxie chuckled and was about to follow. Bear Mountain smiled and came up to him. "Brother-in-law, are you done?" "What, done?" Jun Mo Xia stared blankly for a moment. Then, he immediately understood. He couldn't help but rub his hands together. It seemed as if there was still a trace of pink and smooth lingering on them. Then he said, "And it's done. So strong." Bear Mountain gave him a thumbs up. "Brother-in-law, I really admire you. You are really a man. You even tamed our eldest sister. We prostrate ourselves before you. Really, that goes without saying. Men should be like this. What kind of man are you if you can't even control your own wife?" June Moxie said proudly, "Bear, let me tell you, you must be strict with your wife. If she doesn't listen, punching and kicking are a small matter. Most of the time, you have to use a stick to beat her until she begs for mercy. Yes, that's called manliness. Yes. Brother-in-law is wise. I will remember this in the future." Bear Mountain said modestly. He memorized this wife-controlling treasure book in his heart. "Well, you can slowly experience it. I'm going over." June Moxie left quickly, Jun Moxie was anxious about the matter in Tianxiang that Jia Qinyan mentioned. However, he knew that being anxious would not help. So much time had already passed. If it was really going to happen, it would be too late even if he returned immediately. If it didn't happen, it wouldn't happen. The only thing he could do now was to settle everything here and rush back as soon as possible. If they were to be thrown into confusion, then both sides would be delayed. That would be a loss that outweighed the gain. Therefore, no matter what happened in Tianxiang, he had to wait until everything was settled. Jun Moxie firmly believed that with his grandfather's wisdom, he would definitely be able to get through this. He was sure of this. Furthermore, he had left behind countless arrangements before he left. If there were any accidents, I will make the entire world accompany my grandfather in death. What is the war for seizing the heavens? It can't even be compared to a hair on my grandfather's head. I will naturally care about the people I care about. Chapter 716. When he arrived at the Jun family's encirclement, Jun Moxie saw that nearly 100 Shao family members had been tied up. Their faces were ashen and full of despair. Shao Xingyan's body was limp as he lay on one side. There were also a few corpses beside him, dripping with blood. Jun Wui, Dongfang Wen Xian, Guanqing Han, and the others were standing on one side. Their faces were full of grief and indignation. What's the situation? Jun Moxie was startled as he quickly walked over. The Shao family members know that they're going to die. They refuse to confess who killed your father. Dongfang Wen Xian's eyes were red. She was on the verge of tears. They refused to confess to more than 100 people? How courageous! Jun Moxie raised his foot, and a long sword fell into his hand. Just as he was about to step forward, a thought flashed through his mind, and he recalled something. He had used hypnosis and soul manipulation on Xiao Buyu on the way back from Tianan City. He clearly remembered that Xiao Buyu had said this at that time. That's a dangerous army. I remember Xiao Han, Xiao Yang, Xiao Zhen, Xiao Cheng, Xiao Guang. Jun Moxie's thoughts turned as he searched through his memories. He closed his eyes and stood there quietly, letting the names of the people that he would never forget flow through his mind. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, and a murderous aura swept out like a raging wave. It enveloped nearly 100 people in the field. This was a real chi torrent released by a second-level venerable. In this world, there were only a handful of people who could withstand it. Even Xiao Xingyun, who had the highest cultivation in the Shao family, was powerless against it even when he was at his peak. All of them had grown up in the snowy mountains, so they were used to the cold. But at this moment, they were enveloped by Jun Moxie's aura. That murderous aura seemed to seep through their clothes, into their skin, into their muscles, into their bones, and into their hearts. Xiao Yang. Jun Moxie shouted. This shout caused everyone's hearts to tremble, and the Shao clan members who heard it all felt their heads go dizzy. Yes. I'm not Xiao Yang. I'm really not Xiao Yang. A middle-aged man realized that something was wrong the moment he spoke and immediately changed his words. Yes, it's you. Men, bring this kid out for me. I want to have a chat with him. Jun Moxie said amiably. Dongfang Wenqing did it herself. She flew forward and kicked the guy out. Next, who's Xiao Zhen? Jun Moxie smiled at the group of people who were tied up like dumplings. However, the piercingly cold look in his eyes was enough to turn the spring breeze of the southern kingdom into a snow-capped mountain. Everyone fell to the ground in a daze, but no one said a word. Yeah, no one is talking. Very united. This is good. Jun Moxie held his sword and walked to the person closest to him. He asked softly, "Are you Xiao Zhen?" The middle-aged man shook his head with all his might. "Raise your head and look at me," Jun Moxie suddenly shouted. The middle-aged man raised his head involuntarily. His tired eyes met Jun Moxie's eyes, but he felt like he was attracted by a magnet. He couldn't get rid of it. He felt like there was a bottomless pit in front of him. His mind and soul were all sucked into it. Then who's Xiao Zhen? Can you tell me? Jun Moxie asked softly. A dazzling light shot out from his eyes. It brought with it a dazzling color and entered the middle-aged man's eyes. Okay, I'll tell you. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed. After a moment of shock, he looked a little lost. Then, he displayed a look of righteous indignation and said angrily, "Humph, this bunch of scum, they conspired to kill the white general. I've never liked these scum. How can such a legendary person die in the hands of these scum? I can't tolerate this." As soon as this sentence came out, everyone in the Shao family felt like they were struck by lightning. They stared at him blankly, as if they didn't know him at all. Very good, very good. Well said. Jun Moxie cut the rope on his body with the tip of his sword. The middle-aged man stood up with righteous indignation and said angrily, "Especially that bastard Xiao Zhen. I find him to be an eyesore to the extreme. He's a pile of sh*t. He has nothing good about him, and he still has the cheek to call himself a playboy. It makes me sick. Every time I see him, I want to spit on his face." The Xiao family was even more speechless. They looked at him as if he was an alien. I understand your feelings. Now, please point out who Xiao Zhen is." Jun Moxie said gently. "Me." The middle-aged man pointed at his own nose and said in a righteous, angry, and disdainful tone, "I am Xiao Zhen, that son of a b****. Jun Moxie was dumbfounded. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He staggered and almost fell on the snowy ground. Damn it, my luck is too good. What kind of explanation is this? Originally, he wanted to let them fight each other and watch the show, and then cause them to betray each other before they died. Who knew that his luck was so good that it defied the natural order? Basically, the ratio was about 1%, and he actually caught one accurately. Damn it. With this kind of luck, he should go buy a lottery ticket. Xiao Zhen am a bastard. Back then, he had been blinded by lard and had actually committed such a heinous act. He should have been hacked into pieces, put to death by 1,000 cuts, and exterminated along with his entire family line. Even if he didn't have any descendants, he would still be a prostitute, and his descendants would be endless generations. I should send this despicable Xiao Zhen to the 18th level of hell, never to be reincarnated. Even if I reincarnate, I should be reincarnated as a despicable, lewd pig. Xiao Zhen followed Jun Moxie's instructions and cursed himself without stopping. Everyone's eyebrows twitched as they listened to him. They had never seen or even dared to think of such a thing before, and they had never heard of such a thing before, and they didn't even dare to think about it. But the target of his scolding was himself. This really made people speechless to the extreme. As the initiator of all this, Jun Moxie was speechless. He almost vomited blood. What the hell is this? Stop. Jun Daxiao quickly stopped him. Since Mr. is so righteous, why don't you point out the rest of the people on the spot? They have committed such heinous crimes. If you point them out, you will be enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. You will definitely be praised by your family and the world. This is a great deed that will last for thousands of years." Jun Moxie gritted his teeth and said. After Xiao Zhen heard this, a trace of glory appeared on his face. It was as if he had really done something great for the country and the people and was now receiving praise from everyone. Complacently, he turned around and looked at his own clansmen. His face actually revealed a strange expression like that of a cat toying with a mouse. As Xiao Zhen looked at them, many of the Xiao family members had a look of despair on their faces. Some of them even looked at the snowy ground enviously, envious of their comrades who had been crushed to death. At least they didn't have to watch helplessly as they suffered. The situation in front of them was too strange. What was going on? Could it be that Jun Moxie was like a demon? How could he play with human nature and force his own family to kill each other? Jun Moxie, you're so despicable. You used this kind of demonic technique to make Xiao Zhen lose his mind. You made him lose his nature and kill each other. You're extremely vicious. Xiao Xingyun cursed loudly. His face had turned purple, and he had almost vomited blood. He had almost fainted from anger as he watched the younger generation of his family kill each other. After the ninth elder and the others returned to the Blizzard Silver City, Xiao Xingyun naturally knew that his second brother had been made to strip dance by Jun Moxie. He had always been fearful of Jun Moxie. So, when he saw Jun and Mo Xie using the same trick again, he couldn't help but feel terrified and angry. Xiao Xingyun, if you don't shut your mouth, I'll make you do a strip dance for everyone to enjoy. Jun Moxie didn't even turn his head as he spoke in a ruthless manner. Xiao Xingyun's face was filled with grief and indignation. However, he still bit his lip and lowered his head in humiliation after he heard these words. He didn't dare take this risk because he knew that Jun Moxie would do it. He wasn't afraid of death, but Xiao Xingyun was extremely afraid of dying in such a humiliating manner. On the other side, Xiao Zhan had already begun his testimony. Xiao Cheng, do you think that I don't recognize you just because you lowered your head? I'll recognize you even if you turn into ashes. Xiao Zhan pointed his finger at a skinny middle-aged man as he spoke in a cold voice. That man trembled as he raised his head. He gritted his teeth and cursed. Xiao Zhan, you've forgotten your ancestors. You've betrayed your people. You've buried your conscience. You've betrayed your family. You'll die a horrible death. Dongfang Wenjian hadn't even finished speaking when he was pulled out. Xiao Zhan, that bastard has nothing to do with me. I'm a good person who places righteousness before family. Xiao Zhan proudly defended himself. Then, he pointed with his right hand. That's Xiao Guang. Why are you hiding? Where are you going to hide? That's Xiao Zhong. The one with the broken leg is Xiao Dong. As Xiao Zhan pointed them out one by one, he had actually pointed out 7 people, including himself and Xiao Liang, who had been pulled out by Jun Moxie. There were a total of 9 people. They were lined up in front of the queue. There are 3 more people, but those 3 bastards had bad luck. Just now, they were crushed to death by rocks under the landslide and were taken away by God. The leader of that conspiracy was Xiao Han. Because of the accident, he was crippled and kept in a secret room. He wasn't on this trip. Xiao Zhan turned around with an expression as if he had done a great deed. The rest of the Xiao family members were muttering in their hearts. What do you mean by bad luck? It's obviously because they were too lucky. It was a clean death. Those who had been pointed out were probably going to suffer for the rest of their lives. Just a few of you? Is there anyone left out? Jun Moxie frowned. The monthly rankings are not impressive, brothers. It seems like our failure at the end of the month has become our habit. In September, there was an explosion every other day. We updated 300,000 words a month until a few days before the end of the month. We were instantly surpassed. In October, it could be considered a break. But we still updated 240,000 words. There were also 7 or 8 explosions. We still fell behind at the end of the month. In November, we had an explosion for a whole month. But we were still surpassed on the last day. In December, we worked hard for another month. Up until now, we've already had an explosion for 10 times. During this period, we even had to deal with those disgusting reports. Now that it's the end of the month, are we going to repeat the mistakes of those months? I can't accept this. Chapter 717. The 2 uncles who led the operation, Xiao Zhua and Xiao Yu, are these 2. But they didn't make a move. The 10 of us were enough. They accompanied us just in case. Everything went smoothly, so we didn't need them. Xiao Zhan casually pointed, and the 2 old men, who had already let out a sigh of relief, turned pale again and started to tremble. Very good. I also want to know the specifics of what happened that year, especially how my father died. Who killed him? Jun Moxie said word by word as he looked at the group of people in front of him. His heart was suddenly filled with grief and indignation. Ever since he had integrated into this world and into this family, he had completely accepted that he was Jun Moxie. Every time he thought of the names Jun Wu Hui, Jun Wu Meng, Jun Mou, and Jun Mo Cho, his heart would ache. It was an indescribable pain. Yes, it was painful. A legendary general, a hero who had died tragically in the hands of thieves. He had been wronged for 10 years, and now he had gotten his revenge. He had protected millions of people in Tianxiang. But when he was killed, the people of Tianxiang were either sad or angry. But only a few of them stood up to avenge him. When he was gone, his family declined day by day. They became the target of their political enemies. When everyone hit them when they were down, not many people spoke a word of justice. When the in-laws went all out to take revenge, the whole of Jianghu watched with folded arms. Everyone was waiting to see if good would be rewarded, and evil would be repaid with evil. Everyone knew that the Jun family had been wronged, but they still chose to watch. But when the Dongfang family was gradually exhausted and forced to make a vow to leave Jianghu, no one stood up. Where was the word righteousness that had been passed down in Jianghu? Jun Moxie suddenly felt very sad. Tianxiang had been living and working in peace and contentment under Jun Wu Hui's protection when he had been around. So, no one had thought anything of it. However, after he was gone, these people were invaded and humiliated. Only then would they lament. If the general in white was still around, who would dare to do this? Every time he thought of these things, Jun Moxie would feel indignant and furious. Even wild beasts knew how to repay kindness, but humans, living humans, were completely unaware of it. Pitiful, truly pitiful. Whether a hero created history, or history created a hero, the world would only remember their benefits after the hero was gone. Could it be that only death could truly make people remember the heroes who did their best for them? And it was just a simple memory. Jun Moxie had asked himself many times. Father Jun Wu Hui, he stepped forward bravely and did his best to protect so many people. Was it really worth it? What right do those who don't know how to be grateful have to accept protection? The soldiers were bleeding for thousands of miles at the front lines, defending dignity and peace with their lives, but the rear was still a scene of debauchery and debauchery. Those who wanted to go whoring went whoring, and those who wanted to gamble gambled. Those who wanted to be corrupt were still corrupt, and those who wanted to keep little mistresses were still keeping little mistresses. They were still fighting for fame and fortune, and still leading a befuddled life. Even if they were ordinary people when men and women were farming and working happily, who would have thought that thousands of miles away, there were soldiers who were eating and sleeping in the open, trudging in the sandstorm, fighting in the bloody mist, and struggling in desperation, until the last drop of blood flowed out. The direction of their eyes was still the home that they could never return to. Home, the place that the soldiers yearned for, the place that motivated them to fight for, was abandoning them when they were fighting with their lives on the line. Looking at the 11 people from the Shao family in front of him, Jun Moxie's eyes burned with anger, an anger that couldn't be vented. After he asked that question, the people from the Shao family all lowered their heads. Even Xiao Zhen was thinking hard, as if trying hard to recall the scene of the past. Perhaps it was because it was too long ago, and they couldn't recall it, or perhaps they simply didn't care about such a small matter. For a moment, no one answered. Speak. Jun Moxie's voice was like thunder in their hearts. That year, Xiao Zhen frowned, obviously thinking hard. Finally, he said, I remember that we reported to the Great Elder and followed Xiao Han down the snowy mountains. After traveling for close to a month, we finally reached our destination, Tian Guanling. There, the two countries' armies were fighting. The walls were heavily guarded, and there were sentries everywhere. Looking at the camp that stretched for dozens of li, we felt powerless and at our wits' end. To kill the general of an army among hundreds of thousands of people, how could it be so easy? Not to mention that we were only at the level of Tian Xian. Even the two uncles were only at the peak of Tian Xian. Even if a strong Shan Xian expert came, we might not be able to do anything. But Xiao Han claimed that he had already made arrangements, and there was no risk. That night, Xiao Han went out first, but we didn't know what he was going to do. After a day and a night, he came back with a few men in black behind him. In the hands of the man in black, there was a golden arrow token. That was the token that allowed one to enter and leave the Tianxiang army unimpeded. And it was something like an imperial edict. The man in black said that it was a fake, but at that time, we could feel that it was obviously real. If it was not the real thing, with the strict management of the general in white, how could he sneak into the army? If it was not the real thing, we might not have dared to take the risk. Then, the man in black took out many sets of clothes and asked us to change into them. We became his followers, and he brought us all the way into the army camp. Everywhere we went, it was so smooth that it was unbelievable. As long as we showed the golden arrow token, we were unimpeded and no one questioned us. Finally, we arrived at the general's tent. This matter puzzled us greatly. Even if the golden arrow token was the real deal, its effect was still too shocking. After that, we found out that the man in black had come several times with the golden arrow token in his hand. For the Tianxiang army, both the golden arrow token and the man in black were familiar faces, so there was no doubt about it. Otherwise, how could our group of nearly 20 people pass through the camp where millions of soldiers were stationed? Jun Moxie clenched his fists tightly. He could deduce that it was Xiao Han who came forward and hooked up with these people, and then returned to the snowy mountains to call for reinforcements. In other words, those men in black were from the Bloodsword Hall and the royal guards that he killed later on. They had planned to kill his father. Even if Xiao Han did not make a move, they would have made a move. But if Xiao Han and the others were to make a move, they would be more confident, and they would not be afraid of the Jun family's investigation. They actually prepared for such a long time in advance. They used countless times to numb the eyes and ears of the defending army. Jun Moxie also knew where the golden arrow token came from, because in the entire world, only one person could take out such a golden arrow token, Tianxiang's emperor, Yang Huaiyu, and only the golden arrow token that he personally took out could make the millions of soldiers in Tianxiang not suspected. In fact, no one even dared to mention the existence of the golden arrow token. But the tragedy was hidden in this golden arrow token. When we entered the commander's tent, there were many people inside discussing how to defeat the enemy. Jun Wu Hui was not in his military uniform, but was dressed in white. He sat on the commander's seat, and on his right was Jun Wu Meng. Below him, there were 15 to 16 generals divided into two sides. When we entered, the first person to notice us was Jun Wu Meng. At that time, Jun Wu Meng said, "Old Meng, why did you bring a different group of people this time? You really have a lot of subordinates." Many of the generals present laughed, and it was obvious that they were very familiar with this man in black. But Jun Wu Hui was very calm. He kept looking at us and did not speak. After watching them greet each other, he said, "Since the imperial envoy is here, everyone can disperse. You can go out too. This commander has something to discuss with the imperial envoy." The last sentence was directed at Jun Wu Meng. He did not address us by name. I reckoned that at that time, Jun Wu Hui had already sensed that we did not come with good intentions. Because although his tone was calm, his expression changed slightly. Thinking back, he must have hoped that we did not know Jun Wu Meng and let him go out too. But we came for the two of them. How could we not recognize Jun Wu Meng? Even if we did not recognize him, that man in black with the surname Meng would definitely recognize him. Then many generals walked out, but Jun Wu Meng stayed behind. He only looked at his elder brother and did not speak anymore. He did not care about us anymore, but his expression gradually became sorrowful and angry. After everyone had left, Jun Wu Meng then turned around and looked at us, saying, "You are for the Xiao family?" Only then did we know that Jun Wu Hui had already noticed that something was wrong the moment we came in. But against us, the ordinary generals with low cultivation would only be seeking death. Once the battle really started, they would not be of much use. And those generals were all great generals of the army. Once something happened, the millions of Tianxiang soldiers here would fall into a terrible situation without a leader. So he chased them out. In addition, we had already entered the commander's tent and locked all the positions. Even if he wanted to fight like a cornered beast, it would be useless. And we had the golden arrow in our hands. Once he incited the army to fight, it would be considered a rebellion. Anyway, no matter what, under the siege of so many experts, he already had no way out. Why should he implicate so many soldiers and cause them to be killed? So he could only do this to protect the lives of his subordinates first. Only Jun Wu Meng could see it from Jun Wu Hui's face. Perhaps Jun Wu Hui's words did not mention his name, but made him feel that something was wrong, so he refused to leave even if he died. As Xiao Zhan said this, he heard the cracking of his knuckles. It was Junwoo, clenching his fists tightly, tears welling up in his eyes. Dongfang Wen Xian's body swayed a little, but she still stood stubbornly. She bit her lips so hard that a circle of blood appeared. Chapter 718. Third chapter. For 1,000 words. It was obvious that he could not win. The other party was already in his tent. There was nowhere to run. If he had panicked then, none of his brothers in the tent would have been able to escape. If it had been him, the first option would have been to hint to his men to attack from the outside and perish together with the enemy. But in that case, he would have died first. The second option would have been to escape, even if he knew it was impossible. But the difference in cultivation between the two parties was too great. It would have been useless. In the end, he would still have died. If it had been him, he would have fought to the death. Even though he knew there was no way out, he would have fought. That was his character. Junwoo Hui's character was obviously different from his. No matter what, the Junwoo Hui at that time really had no way out. But this general in white, when he knew that he was in a hopeless situation, he did not think of himself, but of his brother's safety. Therefore, his first choice was to chase his brothers out of this place of death, leaving him to face the god of death that he could not resist. He used his composure to exchange for the safety of his brothers. Perhaps the only regret he had was that his second brother did not make it out. At that time, Xiao Han stood up and asked, "Junwoo Hui, do you recognize me?" This sentence was said through gritted teeth. Junwoo Hui smiled and said, "You must be young Master Xiao Han from the Xiao family of the Blizzard Silver City, right? Even though I have never seen you before, I can guess that it is you." Then he stood up with his hands behind his back, and he was still smiling as he said, "You are here to kill me, right? Do you think that by killing me, you can make my third brother suffer for the rest of his life? Xiao Han, that is what you think, right?" Xiao Zhen's tone had a tinge of admiration. At that time, Xiao Han said, "You are an outstanding person. If I had a choice, I would not want to kill you. But who asked you to be Junwoo Yi's most respected brother?" In this world, there were two people who could cause Junwoo Yi to completely break down and live a life worse than death. One is Han Yinyao. Han Yinyao is destined not to be killed by me. The other is you. I happen to have the ability to kill you. How can I not kill you? Therefore, I hope that Commander Jun will not blame me. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame your good third brother. At that time, Junwoo Hui said, "Why should I blame third brother? He was a man of emotions. What wrong had he done? The one in the wrong is you. Even if you kill all of us, my third brother will not collapse. That's my third brother. He's a man of steel, a real man. No matter what he faced, he would face it bravely and would never collapse. I watch him grow up. What I admire the most about my third brother is his indomitable character." Xiao Han, I'm afraid you've miscalculated. Big brother. Junwoo could not hold it in any longer. His voice was hoarse as tears rolled down his cheeks. At that time, Xiao Han said, "Whether you collapse or not, as long as you die, I will know. It's a pity that you will not be able to see it." Junwoo Hui smiled and said, "If that's the case, why don't you wait and see?" Then he sighed and said, "There are so many experts here. It seems that all of you want to kill me no matter what." At this time, all of us had exerted our full strength. At that time, the two uncles were already at the peak of the Sky Xian realm, and 7 or 8 of us 12 brothers were at the early stage of the Sky Xian realm. The rest were all at the peak of the Earth Xian level. Junwoo Hui looked at the color of our Xian Qi and said with a smile, "Ever since we brothers entered the battlefield, we have been preparing for this day. But we did not expect that we would not die on the front lines, but in our own commander's tent. This is unexpected, but we Jun family brothers will never die in the hands of others." Xiao Han said, "Junwoo Hui, I also admire you for being a legend. I can make an exception and give you some time to write a will for your family. Our Xiao family will not care about the revenge of a mere secular family." When Junwoo Hui heard this, he suddenly laughed and said, "The Silver Blizzard City naturally doesn't care about our Jun family, but you gave me the opportunity to leave a will. Aren't you using it to attack my third brother and my family? But do you know that I, Junwoo Hui, have always admired and protected my third brother? As long as I, Jun Woo Hui, am alive, I will not allow anyone to use my name to attack my third brother. Even in death, I will not allow anyone to make use of him. Thank you for making an exception, but I do not need it. Xiao Han laughed coldly and said, Do you still think that you are the white general who commands millions of troops? Not only will you die, even your favorite third brother, I will make him beg for death. Jun Woo Hui said calmly, That's your business. But the men of the Jun family will never yield. Jun Woo Hui said calmly, If you have a bird, you must be a man. Indomitable spirit, F***ck them. In the past, I always felt that it was vulgar and refused to say it lightly. But today, I am determined to say it loudly, F***ck them. After he said this, he actually smiled faintly, and his smile was actually very carefree. After Jun Woo Hui said this, he turned to look at his second brother, Jun Woo Meng, and smiled. Wu Meng, we are really leaving this time. We brothers have been fighting all our lives, and we don't get to see each other for more than a few days in a year. I never thought that we would still have to go on this journey together. Jun Woo Meng laughed and said, Big brother, when we reach the netherworld, I will still be the vanguard for you. Everything in front of me is nothing more than this. Just like what our ancestors said, F***ck it. Father has third brother and sister-in-law to take care of him. I am very relieved. I will go first. After that, Jun Woo Meng sat on the chair, pulled out his sword, and committed suicide. Even in death, his face did not change. Jun Woo Hui laughed and said to us, Wait a moment, it won't be long. I have to tidy up my brother's appearance. This guy is always so impatient. He can command thousands of troops, but he can't tidy up himself. It really gives me a headache. Then, he carefully tidied up the clothes of Jun Woo Meng's body, tied up the belt of his robe, and made him sit up straight. Then he wiped his face. He did these actions very quickly, as if he had done it countless times. Then he turned around and stood in front of the commander's seat. He smiled and said, Second brother has already gone to be my vanguard. As the big brother, I should go too. It is not a good thing for the vanguard to go deep into the enemy's territory alone. As he said this, he made 4 strange gestures, and his expression became very strange. Then he pulled out his sword and stabbed it into his heart. He died immediately. When Xiao Zhan said this, the surroundings were completely silent. Only the sound of sobbing could be heard. What strange gestures did he make? Dongfang Wen Xin asked anxiously. Her face was full of tears, but her eyes were burning with passion, and she did not hide her strong hope. Xiao Zhan looked at her strangely and imitated Jun Woo Hui's movements before he died. He said, Just like this, Jun Woo Hui clenched his left hand into a fist and gently hammered his heart 3 times. Then he stopped there, and the sword in his right hand went straight through his left hand, right into his heart, and nailed his left hand to his chest. But when he died, his expression was very gentle. Wu Hui, Dongfang Wen Xion's body swayed, and she groaned in pain. Suddenly, she screamed, In the end, you were still thinking of the 4 of us. She trembled in grief, and suddenly, her body twitched and she fainted. Guan Qing Han, who was already prepared, held her in her arms. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then understood. So that's how it was. Even at the last moment, Jun Woo Hui did not mention a word about his wife and son. It was probably because he was afraid that Xiao Han and the others would become violent. Instead, he reminded them to deal with his family, to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. But his last 4 movements were the thoughts of this general in White's life. He clenched his left hand into a fist and gently hammered his heart 3 times. It was when Xian, Mou, Mo Cho. Whether it was when Xian, Mo Cho, or Mo Cho, they were all in his heart. So, he only gently hammered his heart 3 times, and it represented 3 people. When Xian, Mou, Mo Cho. He still hoped that his wife and son would not have to worry. As for the last straight sword, it was Mo Xia, Mo Xia. The sword pierced straight through his heart and nailed his clenched left hand into his chest. This was the general in White's greatest wish before he died, to nail his love and affection for his wife and 3 sons into his heart, and take them away. Although he didn't say a single word, this unparalleled hero had left the last moments of his life to his wife and son without a word. Everyone stopped talking. Their cold, awe-inspiring eyes stared at all the members of the Shao clan with hatred. These were the main culprits. They are the ones who single-handedly caused this huge tragedy. They deserve to die 10,000 times over. Junwoo, he felt his heart wrench. Third Master only felt as if his heart was about to explode. He opened his mouth and took in deep breaths, but he felt that it was of no help at all. His heart was filled with grief and indignation, as if it had already filled his chest and could not contain anything else. The tears in his eyes could no longer be stopped, and they flowed down in streams. His entire body trembled. A man does not easily shed tears, only because he has not been deeply hurt. In the midst of his tears, Junwoo, he seemed to feel that his big brother was standing in front of him. His strong and determined voice was still echoing. Why should I blame third brother? He is an emotional person. What has he done wrong? The one who is really at fault is you. Even if you kill us all, my third brother will not break down. That is my third brother, a good man with iron bones, a real man. No matter what he faces, he will face it bravely and will never break down. I watched him grow up, and what I admire the most about my third brother is his indomitable character. I, Junwoo Hui, have always admired and protected my third brother. As long as I, Junwoo Hui, am alive, I will not allow anyone to use my name to attack my third brother. Even in death, I will not allow anyone to use me. Big brother, it's all because of me. Junwoo, he looked up to the sky and howled, his mind extremely agitated. A mouthful of blood spurted out of his throat, and his body fell backwards. Until he fell to the ground, his heart was still full of guilt and pain, and he actually cried out loud. At this moment, he really felt that even if he died immediately, he would not be able to repay his big brother's love for him. Father has third brother and sister-in-law to take care of him. I am very relieved. These were the last words of his second brother before he died. Junwoo, he used all his strength to hit the snowy ground. His throat was already choked, and he could not say a word in the haze. It seemed that his big brother, Junwoo Hui, and second brother, Junwoo Meng, were both dressed in familiar military robes, standing in front of him, looking at him with concern. Junwoo Yi's heart was filled with sorrow, and he stretched out both his hands towards the void, shouting madly, "Big brother, second brother, take me there. Take me there. Third brother, I have sinned. I have sinned. I deserve to die 1,000 times. I am the cause of all this. I am the main culprit. Let me die. Let me die. Heavens, are you blind or something? Why don't you bring me, the main culprit? I beg you, heavens, open your eyes. Let me die. I only beg that you can bring my big brother and second brother back to life." Junwoo, he roared, and a mouthful of blood splattered all over the ground. The biting cold wind whistled past, and everyone felt cold all over their bodies. The sky was already covered with dark clouds, and heavy snow was falling. Heaven and earth were covered in a vast expanse. Dongfang Wenqing sighed, and struck the back of Junwoo Yi's neck, knocking him out. She waved for someone to come and take care of him. The experienced Dongfang First Master understood that if Third Master Jun were to continue like this, there would be another Jun family member's corpse lying on the summit of the snowy mountain today. Jun Moxie felt a cold sensation on his face. He reached out to touch it and felt tears. He didn't know when his face had been covered in tears. We were just about to go out when Junwoo Hui's guards, the 8 white generals, suddenly barged in. They saw that there was no movement inside, so they came to check. They fought fiercely, but they died in our hands in a short while. But it finally alerted the guards outside, so we killed our way out. I have to say, although the army was large, there was not a single expert among them. Plus, we have the golden arrow token, so we have some restraints on the army. Plus, the man in black also arranged a lot of spies in the camp. We don't know what's going on inside. It's a mess, but we got out easily. Xiao Hushan finally stopped here. Continue. And my third uncle, Junwu Yi, my big brother, Junimo Yu, and my second brother, Junimo Cho. How did you manage to do it? Go on, don't leave out any details. Xiao Zhen continued, describing one soul-stirring scene after another. Finally, Dongfang Wendao couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Kill all these bastards! What's the point of keeping them alive? To bring disaster to the world? Kill them all. Kill. Of course we have to kill them," Jun Moxie said coldly. "But we have to wait for Mother to wake up, third uncle to wake up, and for all the people involved to come to take revenge and announce it to the world. If we kill them now, it will be unfair to many people. Who else wants to come?" Dongfang Wendao asked in surprise. Before he finished, he already understood. From the direction of Blizzard Silver City, a group of people in white was slowly approaching. In the snow and fog, they walked very slowly, as if their feet weighed 1,000 pounds. The leader of the group was thin and looked very delicate. It was Han Yinyao. Behind her was an old man with white hair, a middle-aged scholar, and a burly man. Behind them were Han Zhanmeng and his wife, and the Han family of Blizzard Silver City. Chapter 719. The moment she said this, Jun Moxie's heart skipped a beat, and he looked up. Yin Bi-chun, Han Feng Shui, and Li Ju Tian were the three witnesses that made the Dongfang family swear that oath. Who would have thought that he would appear here at this critical moment of the Jun family's revenge? Mei Shuiyan's eyes shot over like lightning. She was not looking at Yin Bi-chun, but at the burly man beside him. The burly man's body shook, and he raised his head to look at Mei Shuiyan. When he met Mei Shuiyan's cold gaze, his sturdy body suddenly trembled and shrank. His eyes were filled with panic and guilt. Among the Xian beasts, the flock of pungs suddenly let out a heaven-shaking roar, and the clouds in the sky scattered in all directions. But before this roar could reach the highest point, Mei Shuiyan had already become exceptionally angry. Her eyes narrowed, and a tyrannical aura rushed over, rushing into the flock of pungs and mercilessly covering them. With a loud boom, the flock of pungs did not even dare to breathe loudly. They were actually suppressed by this unprecedentedly powerful aura, and they spread their wings and lay flat on the snow, their bodies trembling as if they were convulsing. "What are you all shouting about? From the day he left Tian Fa, he was no longer your king, and he will never be." Mei Shuiyan faced the flock of pungs, and her voice was calm, but the meaning behind her words was resolute. "The current him is only a traitor from head to toe. If there comes a day when we become enemies and meet again on a narrow road, we will become enemies that cannot live under the same sky. What are you all cheering for? Boss, you—" The curly-bearded man let out a shrill cry and suddenly dashed out. He dashed madly all the way until he arrived in front of the Xian beasts. His entire body trembled as he stood there abruptly. It was because he no longer existed in the eyes of his former companions. Mei Shuiyan was gazing at the people from the Silver Blizzard City in the distance. She didn't seem to notice that there was another person in front of her. Long Crane had a complicated expression on his face. He lowered his head. Big Bear turned his face away. Earthcracker, Ho Chi, and the others spat on the ground. Then they turned around. This bunch of simple-minded Beast Kings only knew that the former second brother, the former Rock King, had long left Tian Fa Forest. He had betrayed the responsibilities that he should have shouldered and betrayed the teachings of their ancestors. He was a complete traitor and was no longer their brother. Furthermore, as a Beast King of Tian Fa, he had become the mount of a human. This was the greatest shame of Tian Fa. As Mei Shuiyan's words fell, all the Xian beasts were no longer as happy as before. Their eyes were filled with anger, especially those Peng Kings who had just appeared. They looked at the former Peng King with eyes full of anger, disdain, and sorrow. Tian Fa will always be Tian Fa. High-level Xian beasts of Tian Fa can become friends with humans, even if it's a close friend. But they will never become the slaves of humans. If a friend is in trouble, they can lend a helping hand out of righteousness. But after the matter is over, they will still be Tion Fa's Xian beasts. Even beast kings cannot break this rule. We, Tion Fa, have always pursued equality with humans. Not to be enslaved, to be trampled. We, the ones who contributed the most in the war for seizing the heavens, want to prove that Xian beasts are not inferior to humans, and are even stronger. This was a message left behind by a senior of Tion Fa from many generations ago, and these words were regarded as the golden rule by the Xian beasts of Tion Fa, who had always been discriminated against. It was firmly engraved in the hearts of every generation of Xian beasts. Therefore, from ancient times until now, there were very few Xian beasts of Tion Fa who had become the mounts of humans. It could even be said that there were almost none until Mei Shuiyan's generation. An anomaly appeared. Tion Fa's Peng King had blatantly violated this taboo. This Peng King had left Tion Fa on his own accord, and even became the mount of the #1 supreme master of the human race, Yin Bichun. Therefore, Mei Shuiyan could not accept this. Such a huge shame happened in the era when she was ruling over Tion Fa, and it happened after she was injured and went into seclusion. When the Peng King was temporarily in charge of Tion Fa, he had abandoned his duties and become the mount of humans. The Xian beasts of Tion Fa were even more unable to accept this. When Mei Shuiyan went into seclusion to recuperate, and the Peng King had unexpectedly left Tion Fa, the Tion Fa forest had entered its weakest and darkest period of time ever since Tion Fa became known as a ferocious land. Many high-level Xian beasts had met with accidents during this period, and even a few beast kings had fallen. The name of Tion Fa as a ferocious land only existed in name. This was something that all the Xian beasts of Tion Fa could not understand or forgive, no matter what the reason was. The Peng King's body trembled as he stood in front of this iron-walled group of Xian beasts. Facing these companions who had once gone through thick and thin with him, he could clearly feel a great sense of alienation and indescribable rejection. Those brothers who were once close to him, who he had been with day and night, were now staring at him like the sharpest knife. Those 9th-level peak flying Xian beasts that had yet to take human form even had their fur standing on end as they stared at him with hostility. He was very clear that this was a posture of preparing for battle. Looking at this scene, he was even more clear that he would never be able to return to this group of people in this life. They would never be able to return. The Peng King's face was ashen as he staggered back step by step. His burly body was like a withered leaf in the wind at this moment. Helpless and withered, the people from Blizzard Silver City finally arrived. The person in the lead was Han Yin Yao, who was holding 4 memorial tablets in her arms. Ever since she left the Sword Peak, she had spent the night making these 4 memorial tablets and worshipping them. No matter whether the Jun family won or lost today's battle, she would come out with these 4 memorial tablets. If the Jun family was unfortunately defeated, she would carry these memorial tablets and go to the netherworld with Jun Wui. If the heavens had eyes and the Jun family won in the end, these memorial tablets would need to be sacrificed with the blood of the Shao family. Sacrificed to the unyielding souls of the heroes. There were 2 paths of victory and defeat, but she had turned these 2 paths into one. Father, Mother, Han Yinming cried out in pleasant surprise. Then, she spread her legs and rushed over. She rushed all the way into Xue Shuangqing's arms. The city lord's wife, Xue Shuangqing, hugged her little daughter tightly and cried tears of joy. Good girl, my little Minger, Mother's little sweetheart. I finally get to see you again. Xue Shuangqing picked up her daughter and carefully looked at her daughter's delicate little face. She wanted to see if her daughter had become darker, thinner, or if she had been wronged during this period of wandering outside. In these few months, Xue Shuangqing had tried to break her heart countless times for this missing daughter. Now that her daughter had finally returned safely, she naturally wanted to take a good look at her and be intimate with her. Contrary to her expectations, her youngest daughter didn't lose any weight, nor did she tan. Instead, she became more voluptuous. A healthy blush appeared on her snow-white face, and there was a hint of shyness in her eyes that wasn't there before shyness. Shui Qing was stunned. At this moment, Han Yinmeng moved closer to her mother's ear and whispered, "Mother, look, that kid is Jun Moxie. Hee. I've been living in his house for the past few months. That guy is really despicable. He's obviously the nephew of third brother Jun, so he should call me little aunt. But he tricked me into making a bet with him, and even said that I'm his concubine. He's so annoying." Shui Qing looked at her daughter's long-winded speech. Although her words sounded dissatisfied, her eyes were filled with joy and some embarrassment. The satisfaction that overflowed from her heart could not be concealed at all. Her heart could not help but sink, and she sighed powerlessly. Is the Jun family really a bottomless pit? Do I have to drag both my daughters into it? And this kid is Jun Wui's nephew. That's a difference in seniority. On the other side, Dongfang Wen Xian and Jun Wui had already been rescued by Jun Moxie, but they couldn't stop their tears. Jun Wui's expression returned to normal, but the 2 lines of tears showed no signs of stopping. Han Yin Yao slowly walked over with the memorial tablet in her arms. There was only sorrow on her face. Her long hair fluttered in the wind and snow, and her lips trembled. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She just quietly looked at Dongfang Wen Xian, who was in extreme sorrow, and knelt down with a thud. "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm the one who deserves to die. Why am I still alive? So many innocent people were implicated, but I, the main culprit, am still alive and well in this world. I'm the one who deserves to die." Dongfang Wen Xian sighed and suppressed her sorrow. She wiped away the tears on her face and sobbed. "Sister, get up. How can you be blamed for this? You're also a victim. You've also suffered all these years." Dongfang Wen Xian's voice was trembling. As soon as she finished speaking, the 2 suddenly hugged each other and burst into tears again. After a long time, the 2 separated under the persuasion of others. Han Yinyao was pulled up by Dongfang Wen Xian, and the 2 stood side by side. Jun Wui's eyes had never left Han Yinyao's figure since she appeared. At this moment, the 2 finally met each other's eyes. But it was just a slight touch, and they quickly moved their eyes away in horror. Their eyes were instantly filled with tears. It was just a light touch, but they both felt the deep sorrow in each other's eyes, as well as the unspeakable guilt that was as deep as the sea and as heavy as the mountain. In an instant, the 2's hearts felt as if they were being torn apart. A whole 10 years of separation, a whole 10 years of deep longing, a whole 10 years of spring and autumn. The sea had almost turned into mulberry fields. Would things remain the same? But the people would change. This pair of lovers who loved each other deeply finally met again. After going through countless difficulties and suffering, they finally came to this moment of reunion. But they didn't dare to look each other in the eyes. Chapter 720. Because the other party's eyes were filled with deep sorrow, and neither of them could bear to look at it. They were even more afraid that if they looked at each other again, their eyes would tightly intertwine with each other, and they would never be able to separate again. Jun Wui slowly stepped forward, but he tried his best not to look at Han Yinyao. However, Han Yinyao's eyes were firmly fixed on his face, and she didn't even blink. Her eyes were slowly filled with sparkling tears. Jun Wui stretched out his trembling hands and took the 4 memorial tablets from Han Yinyao's embrace. At this moment, his entire body was trembling as if he was convulsing. He hugged the memorial tablets tightly and suddenly pressed them against his face. Eldest brother, second brother, my 2 nephews, the Jun family's blood feud has finally been avenged today. Jun Wui choked with sobs, and he gently rubbed his face against the memorial tablets. He felt as if he had returned to the time when he was young, and he felt the warmth of being hugged by his eldest brother and second brother. All of a sudden, the snow-covered ground moved soundlessly, and a sacrificial altar rose up abruptly. It was Jun Moxie who had activated his Xian Qi, and had secretly created an altar out of thin air with the power of earth. He placed the 4 memorial tablets neatly on top of the altar. Make everyone from the Shao family come over and kneel down. Everyone kowtow 9 times in order to worship the souls of the heroes. Jun Moxie fiercely ordered. Immediately, the people of the Dongfang family moved out, and each person served 1 person. They pressed the Shao family members down in front of the altar and used their hands to press their heads down and made them kowtow. A few of them struggled angrily, but in the next moment, a few heavy slaps landed on their faces. Blood and teeth flew out at the same time, but they were still pressed down. Each of them kowtowed at least 9 times. Shao Xingyun, you are the great elder of the Shao family and the number 1 person in the Shao family. You have committed many evil deeds, perverted the family, and cruelly harmed heroes. Your crimes are monstrous. You need to know that the entire Shao clan is crippled because of you. Because of you, we have no descendants, and because of you, we have perished in this world. Today, I'll let you watch helplessly as your Shao clan's descendants perish without a single blade of grass remaining and be consigned to eternal damnation. Jun Moxie fiercely glared at him. Then, he raised his hand and ordered, take all the members of the Shao family. Behead them 1 by 1 in front of the altar. Leave the old thief Shao Xingyun for last. I will use the blood of his own family to drown this old bastard alive. Wait. The middle-aged scholar Yun Bi Chun shouted and turned to Jun Moxie. Jun's son Shao, as the saying goes, killing is just a matter of nodding one's head to the ground. Although the Shao family and the Jun family have a grudge against each other, the Shao family has already suffered a crushing defeat and has no room to struggle. Why use such cruel methods? Yun Bi Chun, ha ha ha. I've been looking for you for a long time. Jun Moxie laughed. The mysterious leader of the 8 great masters, the elusive great master Yun. Haha, back then, you came out of seclusion for the Shao family and witnessed the Dongfang family's vow to leave this world. Now that the heavens have proof, the vow has been broken. Have you witnessed it as well? Yun Bi Chun sighed deeply and said heavily. However, the Sword Peak has collapsed, and the Xian Beast have all come out of Tian Fa. I've seen it. The Dongfang family can naturally return to this world, but if they continue to kill, since the vow has been broken, why are you still objecting? Is it your place to speak here? Jun Moxie looked at him with a gloomy face and cut off Yun Bi Chun's words. I'm not objecting. I just hope that the Jun family can be merciful. I'm not trying to stop the Jun family from taking revenge. I just hope that they can be sent on a quick and painless journey. Yun Bi Chun took a deep breath. We are all raised by our parents. Why do we? Since you have no intention of stopping the Jun family from taking revenge, then it's fine. Yun Bi Chun, you witnessed the failure of the Jun family's revenge and even forced the Dongfang family to make an unbreakable vow to never come out again. Don't think that you can stay out of this matter. You too have to give us an explanation. Give us an explanation. Why do you have to talk nonsense in front of me now? Why do you have to mediate? Jun Moxie smiled eerily and said, the only thing you need to do now, and the only thing you can do, is to be a witness again. Witness the success of the Jun family's revenge. Witness the process of revenge from beginning to end. He paused and said in a low voice, you have been a good person your whole life, but you will always be bullied and humiliated by others. If you don't return the favor, then everyone will want to ride on your head. Only by using the cruelest methods to intimidate others will you be remembered forever. I want to tell the world that this person cannot be provoked. If you provoke him, even if you die, you will have to pay a greater price. Jun Moxie laughed. No wonder there are so many people in this world who are willing to be ruffians, willing to be bad guys. It is because of this great advantage that no one dares to provoke you. Yun Bi Chun, don't you think this makes sense? Yun Bi Chun's long eyebrows twitched. He thought for a long time and finally sighed. In this world, if a good person does something wrong, then everyone will criticize him. Even people who are completely unrelated to him will step on him. Why? This was because everyone knew that this person was a good person. Even if you scolded him or hit him, he wouldn't do anything. He definitely wouldn't fight back. Once he fought back, he would no longer be a good person. He would be condemned and reviled by everyone. On the contrary, even if a bad guy does the worst thing, most people will only watch but will not step in personally, because they're all waiting for the law to punish this bad guy. If someone wanted to step forward bravely, a kind-hearted person would immediately remind them, this person is a bad guy. He dares to commit murder and arson. You can't afford to offend him. Once you do, I'm afraid your family will suffer. He's really capable of doing that. Anyway, there is the government. Why do you care about this? Therefore, the person who wants to meddle in other people's business will be deterred by the kind person's advice. As time goes by, as long as the government does not arrive, or as long as this bad guy can escape from the government site, then he will live more freely than most people. Jun Moxie said this in a mocking tone. He suddenly laughed and said, "That is why I do not want to be a good person. I will not have the luxury of repaying evil with good. I only know how to repay blood with blood. I would rather have the whole world fear me than have the whole world respect me. This is me, Jun Moxie." After that, he roared, "Execute them immediately. Pay tribute to the souls of the heroes. Whoever dares to say another word, I'll kill them immediately. No matter who that person is, kill them without mercy." With that order, blood rained down. One by one, human heads were placed on the altar. This was undoubtedly a tragic scene. But to the Jun family and the Dongfang family, it was a joyous scene. The blood feud had finally been avenged. As Xiao Xingyan drowned in the blood, the entire Jun family knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the memorial tablets of Jun Wu Hui and the others. Heavy snow swirled in the sky, and the wind howled. Dongfang went Xan, Jun Wui, and Hanyan Yao knelt in front of the altar. Their eyes looked at the four memorial tablets on the altar with deep emotion, and they did not move for a long time. "Wu Hui, my husband, I have no regrets in this life for marrying you. Do you know? Although our fate is shallow, and we have only been husband and wife for more than 10 years, to me, those 10 years are like eternity. Those were the most precious and the happiest 10 years of my life. 16 years and 8 months. Wu Hui, I hope you could be a little more patient. Wait for me to make arrangements for Mo Xie and see him start a family. Then I will go and find you. In the next life, we will be husband and wife again. I hope that we will grow old hand in hand." Dongfang when Xian looked at Jun Wu Hui's memorial tablet in a daze. She said in her heart, "That day, Mo Xie asked me to calm down and advised me that he might be able to bring you back to life. I pretended to believe him, but I also knew that it was impossible. A dead person is like an extinguished lamp. How could they be brought back to life? Even if Mo Xie really has the ability to bring you back to life, but you have so many brothers who are going with you. How can you leave them behind? I'm afraid that even if you really came back to life, you would not be able to accept it. But as an incompetent mother, I had to make Mo Xie believe it. I really believed it. That day when I woke up, I knew that if I really went, our child would break down. Mo Xie, our child, he has suffered too much. Under his overbearing appearance, there is a weak heart. Even Mo Yu and Mo Cho were taken care of by us until they were 16 years old. Only Mo Xie, when he was only 6 years old, lost his father and mother. His father died, and his mother went into a deep sleep. We really owe our child too much. I must see Mo Xie start a family and have many children. Only then can I go and accompany you in the underworld, because I want to take good care of our only remaining son. Mo Yu, Mo Cho, I miss you too. I really miss you. Mo Cho has been naughty since young. Mo Yu, you must look after your brother and don't let him get into trouble. In the underworld, you must be filial to your father and second uncle. Every spring, summer, autumn, and winter, I will personally make new clothes for you, make your favorite food, and cook it for you. If you miss me, you must come to my dreams and reunite with me, so that I can take a good look at you. How I want to see you two naughty again. In my heart, you will always be my sons, those two naked fat boys. If there's a next life, I still want to be your mother and make it up to you for everything you have lost in this life. Dongfang Wen Xen knelt down quietly and spoke in her heart. Facing her husband and son who were separated from her in the underworld, she seemed to have endless words to say, endless longing and endless heartfelt feelings. The snow quietly fell on her body, gradually accumulating into a layer of silvery white. But she didn't move at all, letting the lingering sorrow penetrate through the underworld, sending her deep longing and strong emotions to the side of her husband and son who were in eternal sleep. Jun Wui also knelt straight like a statue, and beside him was Han Yin Yao. However, even though he had already untied the knot in his heart before coming here, he still didn't know how to face it at this moment. Looking at his widowed sister-in-law, looking at his eldest brother, second brother, and two nephews sharing the memorial tablets of the two generations of the Jun family, his heart seemed to be mercilessly torn apart. What should I do? What should I do? Heavens! Please tell me, what should I really do? Han Yin Yao, who was kneeling beside him, also felt the same way. Chapter 721. After a long time, Dongfang Wen Xen stood up slowly, wiped away the tears on her face, and said with a smile, "Everyone, please get up. On behalf of my late husband, second uncle, and son, I thank you for your kindness. Don't catch a cold in this world of ice and snow. Wu Yi, get everyone up. This time, we came here for two important things. Now that the blood feud has been settled, it's time to talk about the marriage between you and sister-in-law. You can report to Mayor Han and bring sister-in-law back to our Jun family to hold the long-awaited wedding. From now on, the two of you must love each other, hold hands, and grow old together. This is also what father-in-law me, Wu Hui, and Wu Ming are most happy to see." Jun Wui's whole body trembled, and he suddenly raised his head. "Sister-in-law, this is my order. At this moment, I represent the Jun family and also represent your brother. The eldest brother is the father, and the eldest sister-in-law is the mother. Do you dare to have any objections? Do you dare to disobey?" Dongfang Wen Xen did not give him a chance to speak again, and said solemnly, "The biggest wish of your brother's life is to see you grow up, become an indomitable hero, get married, and live happily. Do you want your brother's soul to not rest in peace in heaven?" Jun Wui was stunned, and he was stunned for a while. Suddenly, he knocked his head hard on the ground and sobbed, "Brother!" Suddenly, he fell to the ground and cried bitterly again. Han Yin Yao knelt on the snow and suddenly crawled a few steps, hugged Dongfang Wen Xen's legs, and cried loudly, "Sister-in-law, thank you, thank you. I'm not worthy." Dongfang Wenxin smiled gently and pulled her up. He gently wiped away her tears and said, "Silly girl, since you call me sister-in-law, you don't need to thank me. What's more, it's your big brother's lifelong wish to make the two of you happy. You don't deserve it. Just don't despise this ignorant third brother." Han Yin Yao couldn't say anything else as tears rolled down her cheeks. She just kept nodding her head. Finally, she laid her head on Dongfang Wenxin's shoulder and cried bitterly. At this time, Jun Moxie was already standing in front of Han Zhanmeng. Beside Han Zhanmeng was the old lord of Blizzard Silver City, Han Feng Shui, his wife, and Yunbi Chun. Mei Shuiyan's figure fluttered and stood behind Jun and Mo Xie. The Han family is not entirely free from responsibility for the Shao family's crimes. Back then, the matter of the Dongfang family was suppressed by the three great masters. This matter is too unfair. So, I've mentioned that we don't want to be enemies with the Blizzard Silver City because of third uncle and third aunt, but we want an explanation. I don't know if City Lord Han has thought about what you have to say. Can you give us an explanation? Jun Moxie said this in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Blizzard Silver City. Ha! What Blizzard Silver City is there now? Old City Lord Han's face was mournful. He looked back at the broken tiles hidden in the wind and snow in the distance, and his face showed a dispirited expression, as if all hope had turned to dust. He was in a daze for a while before he turned around and looked at Jun Moxie. He said slowly, "After Zhanmeng went back that day, He reported to me about third young master's request. I thought about it for a long time, and no matter what, the Han family did owe the Jun family justice that day. It's only right to pay a debt, so naturally, I have to give the Jun family an explanation. Han Feng Shui's white beard fluttered in the wind, but his voice was solemn. In this generation of the Blizzard Silver City, Zhan Meng has no children. He only has 2 daughters. But the Blizzard Silver City cannot be destroyed like this. So, I've decided that after Yin Yao and Jun Wui get married, their descendants will inherit the Blizzard Silver City. First, the Blizzard Silver City will have a successor, and second, it will give the Jun family an explanation. Is Jun Sunshao satisfied with this? Han Fengshui's expression was very solemn as he spoke. No matter how powerful the Jun family was, no matter how overbearing they were, Blizzard Silver City still belonged to the Han family. This was something that no one could take away. No matter how lowly it was still the family's foundation. But if Jun Wui's son were to inherit it, then Blizzard Silver City would become the Jun family's foundation. It would be equivalent to giving the entire Blizzard Silver City to the Jun family. Such a grand explanation was completely out of Jun Moxie's expectations. Jun Moxie was very surprised. Besides, this matter had already involved Jun Wui. As a junior, no matter how strong he was, he could not make the decision on his own. He quickly turned around to discuss with Dongfang, Wen Xian, and the rest. Dongfang Wen Xian was also very surprised to hear this. He quickly exchanged a few opinions with Jun Wui and finally made a decision. It could be seen that Jun Wui's face was a little unhappy, but it disappeared immediately. Old Master Han is so righteous. The Jun family is very grateful and honored. I've just discussed with my third brother. We've decided to accept Old Master Han's good intentions. After Wu Yi and Yin Yao get married, if they only have one son, his surname will be Jun, and he will inherit Blizzard Silver City. If they have 2 sons, the second son will be surnamed Han, and the second son will inherit Blizzard Silver City. What do you think, Old Master Han? Dongfang Wen Xian said with a smile. Han Feng Shui's expression changed. He opened his eyes and looked at Dongfang Wen Xian in surprise. Is this true? He had been a hero for a lifetime, but his biggest regret was that he never had the chance to play with Sun Yao, nor did he have a male grandson to inherit Blizzard Silver City. In this old man's heart, although his granddaughter was also a treasure, she would eventually have to marry and become someone else's wife. Saying that he would give the inheritance of Blizzard Silver City to the Jun family was nothing more than a helpless move. Although this was the case, it would also continue the future of Blizzard Silver City. After all, even if Han Yin Yao married Jun Wui, half of her children would still be of the Han family bloodline. When he heard Dongfang Wen Xian mention this method, he could not help but be excited. With his cultivation, he should not be so excited, but the joy of suddenly having a successor made him unable to control himself. The older one gets, the more they look forward to returning to their roots, and the more they look forward to having more children. This might be the common problem of all old people in the world. Of course, it's true. Our 2 families are already in-laws, and they are all Yin Yao's children. So what if their surnames are Han or Jun? How could they not be Wui's children? How big of a difference can there be? Dongfang Wen Xian said with a smile. Dongfang Wen Xian's words were too polite. When it came to the surnames of children, unless you married into the family of your wife, you would only follow the father's surname. There is no such thing as following the mother's surname. No matter how powerful the mother's family was, it was difficult to change. Making such a decision was also giving the Han family a lot of face. In addition, it was also to make Han Yin Yao feel better. It was also the finishing touch for resolving the feud between the 2 families. Han Fengshui was surprised and overjoyed. He said, "Not bad, not bad." As he spoke, he rubbed his palms together, obviously impatient. He shouted, "Yao, now that your wish has been fulfilled, you have to work hard and quickly give me a few great-grandchildren." Huh. The crowd burst into laughter. Han Yin Yao immediately blushed and lowered her head in embarrassment. In front of so many people, it was really too embarrassing. This grandfather, how could he speak so bluntly? She kept stomping her feet, but did not dare to raise her head. Just as she was feeling embarrassed and angry, she suddenly felt her small hand being held by a big hand. That warm, big hand seemed to be tentative, as if it didn't dare to use force, as if it was going to pull its hand back in the next moment. Han Yin Yao stole a glance and saw Jun Wui standing beside her with a face full of forced calmness. Han Yin Yao could not help but grit her teeth. Her little hand trembled as she grabbed that warm, big hand and held it tightly, unwilling to let go. Jun Wui's whole body trembled. A sense of déjà vu, yet strangeness, welled up in his heart. It was a warm feeling that he had not felt in 10 years. Seeing that the matter was over, Jun Moxie could not wait to return to Tianxiang. But just as he was about to speak, Han Fengshui had just heard Dongfang Wenxin's words, and his whole body was shaken. At this moment, Jun Moxie suddenly felt a wave of dizziness. The Hongjun Pagoda in his sea of consciousness, which had fallen into a deep slumber, suddenly started spinning with a buzz, and it was spinning extremely fast. He faintly revealed a look of extreme urgency. There was also a strong gravitational force that pulled his body closer to cold wind snow. As soon as he turned around, he would immediately have a splitting headache. How could this be? The Hongjun Pagoda was actually pulling his body towards Han Fengshui in a very domineering and unreasonable manner, leaving no room for negotiation. This kind of spontaneous action was unprecedented. What the F***CK? Didn't you eat too much? Why are you suddenly coming out to make trouble now? This is a life and death moment. An inch of time is an inch of gold. Brother Pagoda, I have an urgent matter to attend to and need to rush back to Tianxiang. The situation over there is really critical. Can't you just have a good sleep? Why do you have to pull me like this? Jun Moxie prayed silently in his heart. But the Hongjun Pagoda did not give him any face at all and was very stubborn, pulling him as it pleased. Mother ***, didn't you eat too much? Then you just need to digest it properly. Eating, drinking, and resting is better than anything else. Why do you have to restrict me? There is an urgent matter over at Tianxiang, one step behind, and we may be separated forever. Jun Moxie was a little angry. The Hongjun Pagoda spun even faster, and that strong and inexplicable gravitational force was getting stronger. Jun Moxie stood where he was, tried to resist this force, and return to Tianxiang immediately. But the more he resisted, the stronger the reaction of this force. And, in the end, his face actually turned pale. Sighing helplessly, Jun Moxie took a few steps closer to Han Fengshui's body. Since he was going to get closer, he might as well get closer. So when Jun Daxiao took a few steps forward, he was almost standing face to face with City Lord Han. The Hongjun Pagoda became even more excited, and a sense of urgency and desire was clearly reflected in the bottom of Jun Moxie's heart. It was the feeling of the soul replenishing jade, and there was also an inexplicable, strong force. This, Jun Moxie could clearly sense. Even though the aura on Han Fengshui was relatively weak, he could sense that it was not natural, but a unique aura that came from staying in a place full of soul-replenishing jade for a long period of time. Recommending a new book, The Dancing Beauty's Rules of Survival. I don't think I need to introduce who this young demon master is. This guy's military literature is top-notch. I remember this year in Shanghai. This guy was ruthlessly butchered by me. He invited me and Xiao Dao to wash their feet, but I'm a village boy, so I don't know. He asked me, do I want essential oil? I said yes. After a while, he asked again, do you want XX essential oil? I said yes. It wasn't until I used a few types that I found it strange and asked, how many types of essential oil are there? How long does it take to finish? The guy who washed my feet said, there's a total of 100 types. I'm cold. I asked if it costs money. The guy said it's definitely going to cost extra. So I fainted. Sure enough, when a young demon master went to pay the bill, I could see that his big red face immediately turned black, and his right hand that was reaching for his wallet trembled. Actually, I really didn't mean it. That night, the young demon master gritted his teeth and insisted that I treat him, saying he wanted to butcher me ruthlessly. Chapter 722. In the place where the old city lord usually stayed, there seemed to be quite a number of items similar to the soul-replenishing jade. At the very least, it was bigger than the Shao family's soul-replenishing jades put together. After annihilating the Shao family, Jun Moxie had already secretly taken the soul-replenishing jade from Shao Xingyun's arms and put it into his own. At this moment, not only did the Hongjun Pagoda respond, but the soul-replenishing jade in Jun Moxie's arms also became inexplicably warm. Han Fengshui was startled and took 2 steps back. He looked at the young man who had suddenly appeared in front of him with a face full of surprise. Seeing the greedy look on his face, like a pervert who had seen a beauty, Han Fengshui frowned and asked warily, "What do you want? Doesn't this kid already have a few girlfriends? Why are you looking at me like that? Even if I don't look old, I'm still an old man." What does he mean? Junior doesn't plan to do anything. It's just that I have some admiration for the old city lord's exquisite cultivation. Jun Imo-sie smiled, feeling the Hongjun Pagoda's strong impact in his mind. He had to use all his strength to control himself and not lose his composure. He was very surprised. What kind of magical thing could make a treasure like the Hongjun Pagoda so thirsty? Isn't this a little too inconceivable? Could it be that there were other mysteries on this great snowy mountain? A thought flashed in Jun Moxie's mind. He suddenly remembered that day when he sneaked into the underground of Blizzard Silver City. He had encountered a sticky feeling that prevented him from passing through. Could it be there? Thinking of this, Jun Moxie could not help but rub his chin and smile sinisterly. What's there to admire? Your current cultivation is even higher than mine. Are you complimenting me? Or me? Han Fengshui was even more cautious now. Does this third young master know how to talk? Who compliments people like this? The more he looked, the more he felt that this kid was up to no good. Actually, why is Blizzard Silver City gone? Isn't it still there? Haha, if we want to rebuild, isn't it very simple? Jun Moxie rubbed his chin and said with a chuckle. Han Fengshui pretended that he didn't hear it and treated it as a fart. A fart could still be heard and smelled, but this guy's words were neither loud nor smelly, neither salty nor bland. He was simply making sarcastic remarks. The scale of the Blizzard Silver City had gone through 4 generations of great efforts by the city lords to develop to its current state. How could rebuilding be a simple matter? This kid actually said, "Very simple." This old man thinks that you're going to choke yourself to death with your sarcastic remarks. It's very simple. Han Fengshui was displeased. If it weren't for the fact that their relationship with the Jun family had just been eased, making it inadvisable for them to make a move, he would have taught them a lesson on the spot. Although it seems like I can't beat him, this kid might not dare to fight back, right? Actually, the collapse of the Blizzard Silver City was really God's will. As the saying goes, God is watching what man does. Such a huge movement. If it wasn't God messing with it, who else could have done it? Jun Moxie said something that made the old city lord's face darken even more. The old man was about to fly into a rage and said in a low voice, "God's will? Bullsh asterisk T God's will. Although I don't know what method you used to make the Sword Peak collapse, but if the Sword Peak didn't collapse, how could the Blizzard Silver City have been affected and turned into ruins? You are obviously the culprit, and you dare to talk to me about God's will? What God messing with you? You're taking advantage of me like this. I might have to go to the Jun family and demand an explanation from your grandfather. You've driven us crazy to demand an explanation from the Han family. Now that we're in-laws, I'll go to your grandfather. I can't control you, but there must be someone who can, right? Old City Lord Han, please don't be impatient. I have no ill intentions. Listen to me, and you'll understand." Jun Moxie put on an expression of a charlatan and said patiently, "You see, the entire Blizzard Silver City has always been ruled by the Han and Shao families. Now, the Shao family has betrayed the people and rebelled. Although they've all been killed, the Blizzard Silver City is still full of their traces. Perhaps God didn't like it, So he simply shook the blizzard silver city full of the Shao family's sinful aura and collapsed. This is a good comparison. If the old doesn't go, the new won't come. That's it. Do you understand now that I've explained it this way? Han Feng Shui snorted heavily and crossed his arms, looking up at the sky, as if Jun Moxie, who was beside him, did not exist. Otherwise, Han Feng Shui was sure that he would faint from anger. Understand? What the F asterisk CK do I understand? What kind of bullsh asterisk T is this? Was filled with the Shao family's sinful aura. Is there only the Shao family's aura in the Blizzard Silver City? The Han family's aura is not small either, right? According to what you've said, the Shao family is already dead. If they're all dead, aren't you cursing the Han family to be wiped out as well? I'm a magnanimous man and can't be bothered to be angry with you. Sure enough, those who don't have hair on their mouths are incompetent. They don't even know how to speak properly. On the other side, Han Zhanming and his wife had also come to an agreement with Dongfang when Xian and Jun Wui. Shui Shuangqing looked at Jun Wui, and the more she looked at him, the more satisfied she felt. This blood general's face was flushed red. Indeed, the more a mother-in-law looked at her son-in-law, the more interested she became. Now that everything was settled, Shui Shuangqing had regained her good mood. The Blizzard Silver City was gone. It was not like it could not be rebuilt. The most important thing was that the Shao family was gone. This was the most comforting thing. Now, of course, she had to consider her daughter's lifelong happiness. Shui Shuangqing secretly poked Han Zhanming's arm and whispered, "No wonder Yao Er likes him. This Jun Wui is indeed much better than that Shao Han. Whether it is appearance, character, or temperament, he is much better than Shao Han. His Xian Qi is also extraordinary, and his brilliance is restrained. I can't see through him, but he is definitely better than your father-in-law. It's hard to find someone like him in this world." Han Zhanming nodded without batting an eyelid. His eyes were filled with satisfaction. At last, one of his worries had been resolved. His eldest daughter's marriage had been through many obstacles, and her long-cherished wish had finally been fulfilled. Even the traitor Shao family had been eliminated. Although the Blizzard Silver City had collapsed, it was still a good thing. At least there would not be too many worries in the future. And this son-in-law seemed to be very reliable. This, Madame June. Although Han Zhanming and his wife were older than Dongfang when Xian, Jun Wui, and Shui Shuangqing were not married yet. Shui Shuangqing was embarrassed to call her niece daughter-in-law. Besides, the two of them were not that far apart in age. Furthermore, her youngest daughter seemed to be very interested in Jun Wui's son. This was a mess that was hard to explain. Therefore, Shui Shuangqing felt that her head was in a knot. She did not know how to address her. After thinking for a long time, she finally called her Madame June. I wonder what instructions Madame Han has for me? Dongfang when Xian also felt that it was not easy to address her. After thinking for a long time, she copied Shui Shuangqing's way of addressing her. I have a matter. Shui Shuangqing looked at her youngest daughter and sighed helplessly. She turned to Dongfang when Xian and said, "I'm afraid I have to ask Madame June to make a decision." Seeing her expression, Dongfang when Xian already understood what was going on. He said, "Madame Han, feel free to speak your mind." Shui Shuangqing did not speak. She sighed and said, "Actually, these are all matters between children. These past few years, it has been a headache for me. The mistake of us elders has caused Yao to suffer for 10 years. I have finally understood. It is better to let our daughters decide their own lives. As parents, there is nothing we can do. As long as they are happy, it is more important than anything else. Instead of looking at them anxiously every day and worrying about it every night, it is useless. It is better to let them go and fulfill their wishes. That's right. If you don't give birth to children, you don't know the pain of being a parent. If you don't raise children, you don't know the kindness of their parents. These little fellows have made us spend so much effort." Dongfang when Xian nodded in agreement. She sighed and said with satisfaction, "Luckily, our Mo Xie is an honest child. He has been obedient since he was young. No matter what I ask him to do, he will be very obedient. It has saved me a lot of trouble." Just as she said this, Jun Wooey, who was beside her, suddenly turned his head with a strange expression. It was as if he had suddenly suffered an internal injury from holding back. What? Honest? Obedient? Obedient? Worry-free? It was not that these words could not be said, but how could such beautiful words be used to describe this little brat? Monsieur? If sister-in-law knew what your son had done all these years, I'm sure you'd be so angry that your face would turn green. Poor parents. In order to praise their own children, they really dared to say anything. Even a gentle and virtuous woman like sister-in-law knows how to lie through her teeth. It's really not easy. Isn't that so? As long as our children are obedient, we, as their mothers, will have a much easier time. I really envy you. Your son is so promising and so obedient. Shui Shuangqing's words were obviously not true. She looked at Jun Moxie from the corner of her eyes. This brat's attitude of being the number one in the world, and even had a kind of mischievous and evil nature. No matter how she looked at him, she could not see where the honest, obedient, and worry-free that Dongfang when Xian mentioned was coming from. It seemed that this fellow was not tamed at all. Forget it. When a mother praises her son, shouldn't she pick the nicer words? Now that Yaoer's long-cherished wish has been fulfilled, we can finally put down a huge burden. Shui Shuangqing said hesitantly, but this youngest daughter is giving me a headache. Chapter 723. There are already 3 in the house now. If you don't take the initiative, it's like you're walking away with a treasure. We're not in a hurry. Sigh. When children grow up, they always have to look for their sweetheart. Madam June, that son of yours, cough cough, is giving you this kind of trouble too? No matter what, a grown man should get married, and a grown woman should get married. Shui Shuangqing probed carefully. My son has always been carefree since he was young. He doesn't give me much trouble now, especially when it comes to marriage. I'm worried now, it's a little too much. The one beside Monsieur, Tian Fa's venerable Mei, is my eldest daughter-in-law. And the one beside me, Qing Han, is also my daughter-in-law. They've already consummated their marriage. There's also the pearl of the Duga family, Xiao Yi, at home. Haha, this son of mine, his looks are not bad, and he's especially honest. Besides, he doesn't know how to cover up, so he's more or less attracting bees and butterflies. I know that these 3 girls are already married, but I don't know if there are any others. Because of this, I've scolded him so many times. What should I do if he's so lenient? It's so infuriating that my heart hurts. Dongfang when Xin grumbled, her heart aching from anger, but her face was filled with pride. Anyone could tell that this mother was showing off. Her tone was full of glory. Who couldn't hear it? Her son was so charismatic, and as a mother, she naturally couldn't go unnoticed and felt honored. Was she going to hope that no one would care about her son? Jun Wooey, who was at the side, was on the verge of breaking down. My sister-in-law is too good at making things up. Although what you said is more accurate, what kind of reputation does that kid Monsieur have in Tianxiang City? You're too far off the mark. Shui Shuangqing's mouth twitched. Are you blaming your son? Why do I sound like you're so proud? Looking at Mei Shuyin and Guanqing Han, they both felt that neither of them was inferior to their own daughters. Plus, there was one more at home, and it might be more than 3. What should they do? There were already 3. Moreover, their statuses weren't low either. Just the venerable Mei himself wasn't someone that the Silver Blizzard City could touch. Would his daughter have to become his concubine? That won't do. Just as he was pondering, he heard Dongfang Wenxin continue. So, having so many daughters-in-law is also very distressing, because it involves the question of who is the eldest and who is the youngest. Everyone is the descendant of a prestigious family, especially Shui Yan, who is the overlord of her generation. No matter who it is, there is no reason for her to be a mistress. Yes, that makes a lot of sense, Shui Shuangqing hurriedly agreed. That's why I've been so worried recently that my hair has almost turned white. But in the end, I finally thought of a way. Dongfang Wenxin said mysteriously in a low voice, that is, there's no difference in status. Everyone should be sisters according to their age. Isn't that good? And in this way, the seniority of the sisters would be revealed, and it would be more intimate. Everything would be easier to deal with. Even if there were a few more, it wouldn't be a problem. Besides, I'm not boasting, but I'm not a harsh mother-in-law. I always have a way to satisfy them, right? As parents, it's so tiring. Even the most easygoing children will make you worry. AI, yeah, that little bastard, how would he know the hardships of being a mother? Dongfang Wenqin said with a sigh, and Shui Shuangqing also sighed. But her heart was starting to move. It seemed like this wasn't a big deal. Besides, the Jun family was a real super family now. And her daughter obviously had a good impression of Jun Moxie. Why should she be a villain? Moreover, if she were to be like her sister, she might even end up with nothing. Ahem. Madam Jun, what do you think of my second daughter? After beating around the bush for a long time, Shui Shuangqing finally asked directly, Am I worthy of your son? Yeah. Of course I like Meng, but Yao. Is married to Wu Yi, and Wu Yi is Mo Xie's uncle. The seniority will be messed up. Dongfang Wenqin looked like she was shocked. How is seniority a problem? The martial world is messed up. That time, we suppressed Meng Er's seniority by 1 generation. She is actually younger than her sister. This is known by the whole Silver City. Shui Shuangqing laughed nervously. If that's the case, then leave this matter to me. I'll let them have their wish. Sigh, I'm just too soft-hearted. I can't bear to see my children suffer. Dongfang Wen Xin patted her chest confidently and took on the responsibility. She was already calling them little wife, little wife. How could she run away? Besides, if there were more daughters-in-law, then there would be more grandchildren. It would be best if each of them could give birth to more than 10. He looked at Han Yinming from the corner of his eyes. This girl is really suitable for men. That would be the best. Shui Shuangqing was overjoyed. If Meng comes to my house, you can rest assured. Haha, in-law, I'm quite good at taking care of children. Dongfang Wenqin said passionately. She was already calling him in-law. Jun Wui completely broke down. Sister-in-law, you dare to say that you're good at taking care of children? Shui Shuangqing nodded her head repeatedly, calling him in-law even more passionately. Third Master Jun finally broke down. I married the elder sister. My nephew married the younger sister. Should I call Mo Xie brother-in-law in the future? Or should he call me brother-in-law? When the two of them see Shui Shuangqing, they have to call her mother-in-law. If they have children in the future, thinking of these things, Third Master Jun felt that his brain was not enough to process it, and he directly fainted. With this kind of seniority in the family, not to mention Jun Wui, even I would also break down. But they didn't seem to rush to give me a princess to be their wife. Dongfang Wenqin calculated in his heart. If he wanted to settle this matter with 90% certainty, Jun Moxie's side should not be a problem. Dugu Xiaoi should not be a problem either. That girl still doesn't know anything, and a piece of candy should be enough. The most important thing was to settle things with Guan Qinghan and Mei Shuyan. Those two girls were so obedient to him, and they had a good relationship with little Menger. With the face of Jun Wui and Han Yinyao, there should not be a problem. Dongfang Wenqin's mind was set, and his heart was at ease. Right now, he was even fantasizing about how to hold a few more grandchildren. And so, unbeknownst to others, the two mothers decided on such an important matter in private. And it was a matter that would decide the lifelong happiness of both sides. On the other side, a certain someone was obviously still in a daze, not knowing that the mistress he had made for a prank had now become a reality. Jun Moxie was talking to Han Feng Shui very passionately, trying to get close to him, obviously sticking to him like a piece of sticky candy. This made Han Feng Shui feel very helpless. This brat was so aggressive just now, asking for an explanation from this old man. To be fair, why did he suddenly change his mind in the blink of an eye? Could it be that this brat really had some ulterior motives or some special fetish? But even if he did, there were so many strong men here, then there was no need to find an old man like me. Although I'm old, I'm not old at heart, and I still look dignified and graceful. But how would he know that Jun Moxie who had ulterior motives, felt even more helpless. Do you think I wanna? Who has the patience to talk nonsense with an old man like you? I'm burning with impatience to return to Tianxiang, but that thing in my head won't let me. Thus, the old and the young were stuck in a strange stalemate. Jun Moxie was simply trying to find something to talk about, and Han Feng Shui was exhausted and had no idea how to deal with it. Mei Shuyan, on the other hand, was dealing with two other people, Yun Bichun and the Rock King. Back then, although Yun Bichun had used some dishonorable means, in fact, the two of them were very compatible. Yun Bichun was carefree in the world, and although the Rock King had transformed into a tall and strong man, he was also a person who didn't care about anything. Otherwise, the Rock King wouldn't have been tricked so easily, and even obediently given in after being tricked. The two of them really had a simple and indifferent personality. They were carefree in the forest, drifting away from the world, and yearned for a kind of unrestrained hermit life. Thus, they hit it off and formed a partnership, roaming the world and roaming the four seas. If a more vulgar description was used, it would be adulterer and lover, dry wood and blazing fire. As for the two of them coming, Mei Shuyan only said one sentence. The Rock King betrayed Tian Fa, and this is unforgivable. I don't intend to do anything to you, but the principles of Tian Fa cannot be violated. Heroes and cowards, all in the war for seizing the heavens. Hermit or worldly, the two of them can do whatever they want in the future. But the only requirement was that the Rock King could use martial arts and elemental energy, but not the aura of a Xian beast. If there was any violation, even if they were thousands of miles away, they would still be killed. Although Mei Shuyan's words were resolute, she still emphasized the words war for seizing the heavens. When did she want to be so heartless? If the Rock King could really contribute in the war for seizing the heavens, so what if she let him go? This was Mei Shuyan's plan, although she didn't say it out loud. But she knew that the Rock King understood what she meant. Yin Bichun and the Rock King sighed and agreed to this condition. Then, the two of them floated away. Before the Rock King left, he wanted to bid farewell to the Xian beasts, but when he got near, he felt the intense hostility and could only turn back helplessly. After settling this matter, Mei Shuyan turned around and saw Jun Moxie playing a rogue with a helpless Han Feng Shui. She couldn't help but find it funny and annoying at the same time. Walking over, she said, Xia, now that this matter is over, let's hurry back to Tianxiang. That place is... Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. Big sister, do you think I don't want to go back? I want to go back more than anyone else. But the problem now is, I really can't leave. Looks like if that ancestor in my head doesn't dig out Han Feng Shui's secret, I'm destined to be unable to leave. Begging for monthly votes with bloodshot eyes. Monthly votes. Monthly votes. I don't want to give up. I still want to fight. I will fight until the very last moment. Brothers, sisters, I need your support. The evil monarch desperately needs your monthly votes. Chapter 724. Jun Mo Xie felt extremely helpless in his heart, but he still said with a sigh, the Blizzard Silver City has suffered such a huge loss because of me. As the culprit, how can I just leave like this? No matter what, I should at least try my best. Han Feng Shui was nearly 100 years old, but he was so angry at this guy's shamelessness that he almost got an internal injury. He quickly waved his hands. No need. There's no need. It's actually not that big of a loss. We can just tidy it up ourselves. It won't cost us anything. But his heart was bleeding. The whole Blizzard Silver City was destroyed, and most of the treasures in the city were destroyed. The cost of rebuilding was huge, and there was still no money. Although it was a fatty act, as long as he could get this little devil to leave as soon as possible, it would be worth it. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and whispered into Mei Shuyan's ear. Although he didn't say explicitly, Mei Shuyan understood that he really couldn't leave now. The situation was very strange. Mei Shuyan frowned and said, since Mo Xia wants to help rebuild Blizzard Silver City, how about I lead my men back first? After all, we can't afford to delay there. Jun Moxie thought for a while, but couldn't make up his mind. There were 9 saints over there. Although Mei Shuiyan's strength had been enhanced, she was only a 4th level venerable. Even if she returned, she might not be of much use. Even if they could win, they would suffer heavy losses, and there might not even be a few of them left. This was definitely not worth it. But the longer they stayed here, the more dangerous it would be over there. What should they do? You can go back first. Jun Moxie gritted his teeth, and his eyes were bloodshot. Shuiyan, when you go back, you must be careful. If there are any changes in Tianxiang, then you must immediately return to the Tian Fa forest. Don't act rashly, and don't take revenge. Wait till I get back. You only need to send Crane King to inform me. If nothing major has happened, that would be the best. You only need to feign civility and delay as much time as possible. If they push you too far, then you can say something like this. Just say that my master has set a date with them to meet in a month's time to have a showdown. He had to delay them. Remember, you must wait for me to return. Before that, don't do anything. Mei Shuiyan nodded solemnly. Don't worry. Before the Tian Fa saints come out, how would we dare to go against the 9 saints? Even a Beast King level Dark Beast wouldn't be able to resist a saint level expert. I'm well aware of the pros and cons involved. Mei Shuiyan whistled as soon as she finished speaking, and the horde of Xin beasts lined up neatly. Jun Wui, the 3 swords of Dongfang, Sikong and Yi, and the others got ready to turn back. Han Yin, Yao, came to her mother and knelt down to bid her farewell. Mother and daughter hugged each other, and it was inevitable that they would be parting. But no matter what, Han Yin Yao had to follow them back to Tianxiang. Unexpectedly, under her mother's instructions, Han Yinming also followed Dongfang Wenxin and her sister back to Tianxiang. Xue Shuangqing couldn't bear to part with her daughter, but she loved her daughter dearly, so she had no choice but to do so. Right now, there were many things to do in Blizzard Silver City. Han Yiming would only suffer more if she stayed here. It would be difficult for her to even find a place to stay, let alone anything else. She might as well follow them back to Tianxiang. No matter what, she would be able to live more comfortably. In any case, the grudges between the 2 families were gone, and there was no more danger. If she missed her daughter, she could go down the mountain to visit her. Besides, letting her daughter stay there could also cultivate her relationship with her future son-in-law. This would be beneficial to the future of Blizzard Silver City. As for Dongfang Wenxin, she was well aware of Xue Shuangqing's intentions. With a tacit understanding, she took her leave and, together with Guan Qinghan and the rest, boarded the back of the flying mystical beasts. Mei Shuiyan let out a long howl that shook the heavens. In the midst of the heavy snow, thousands of mystical beasts took off at the same time, like a dark cloud streaking across the snowy sky, heading towards Tianxiang at lightning speed. There were only 2 people left at the scene, Jun Moxie and Eagle King. Jun Moxie had left Eagle King behind because of his speed. His flying speed was even faster than Crane's. This way, he could save a lot of time on his way back. Why aren't you leaving? What is the meaning of this? Han Fengshui's eyes were wide open, and he was going crazy. Everyone had left, and only this annoying guy had stayed behind. This old man can't take it anymore. Even if everyone had stayed behind, this guy could have left by himself. Why did he have to wait here when everyone else had left? It was fine to wait, but why did he have to stay by my side and stay so close to me? What kind of person is he? Little did he know that Jun Moxie was burning with anxiety. Do you think I wanted to stay behind to stick to an old man like you? There's no place to look at pretty girls in this snowy land. All I had was a black Eagle King. Hongjun Pagoda, you've really made me miserable this time. At such an important moment, it really made me feel like I've fallen into a frying pan. Senior, I say, shouldn't we go and see how damaged Blizzard Silver City is, and if there's any possibility of reusing it? Jun Moxie suggested. Han Feng Shui snorted and flew away, feeling like he was on fire. He felt like he would collapse if he looked at this guy any longer. Xue Shuang Qing greeted Jun Moxie warmly as they walked slowly. Her attitude made Han Zhanmeng a little jealous, and he was very dissatisfied with his wife. When this guy saw me the other day, he almost pointed at my nose and scolded me. And now you're still treating him so well. If someone didn't know better, seeing how gentle and considerate you are, they would think he's your son. What Han Jianming did not know was that his wife was already trying to build a good relationship with her future son-in-law. The more she looked at him, the more satisfied she was with this young man in front of her, even more than her other son-in-law, Junwui. Let's not talk about his handsome appearance and slender figure. How many geniuses have emerged in the Xian continent in the past 10,000 years? But who could be like my son-in-law? He was only 17 or 18 years old, yet he was able to achieve such world-shaking achievements. No wonder his mother was so proud of him. If she did not such a son-in-law, who else would she want? So the more Xue Shuangqing looked at him, the more satisfied she was, and the more she admired him. Even the evil aura around Jun Moxie was taken for granted by her. What a cool and stylish personality. Jun Daxiao actually had a headache as well. He did not know how to address this beautiful woman in front of him. She was his third uncle's mother-in-law. What should he call her? Call her Aunt or Grandma? This problem was solved by Xue Shuangqing herself. Xie, I feel like old friends with your mother, and we're already close friends. You could just call me Aunt. We are children of the pugilistic world. Why should we care so much? This sentence made Jun Moxie speechless. What? Although we are children of the pugilistic world, it can't be so messy. If we address each other like this, then wouldn't I have to call my third third brother when I get back? Or brother-in-law? Then do I still want my butt? So they talked all the way to Silver City, Tianxiang City. Li Yuran had been on the move since the second day after Jun Moxie and the rest left. With 3 saints by his side to help him, Li Yuran's courage was boosted, but at the same time, he was also a little afraid. He had never expected that Jun Moxie, whom he had always regarded as an opponent, would be so powerful. They actually wanted the 3 holy lands to send out saint-level experts. Moreover, there were as many as 9 of them. In this world where even a supreme martial artist could sweep the world and look down on the world, what kind of concept was sending out 9 saints at once? Li Yuran's only feeling towards such a lineup was terror, and even panic. It was even to the extent that he was utterly unable to calculate how formidable this force was. He only knew one thing. Any one of these saints could easily destroy the entire Tianxiang city. This was an unbelievably powerful force. In order to deal with Jun Moxie, the mere Jun family actually sent out 9 saints at once. With such power, they did not directly sweep the Jun family like a thunderbolt. They actually had reservations. What did this mean? What did this mean? So much so that when these 9 saints mentioned Jun Moxie's mysterious master, they had to be cautious and solemn. Li Yuran could vaguely see that. These 9 saints did not have any confidence in dealing with Jun Moxie's mysterious master. So what level was Jun Moxie at now? What level was Jun Moxie's master? Li Yuran did not dare to think about these things, because just thinking about it made her shiver all over. Such a person was actually my opponent in the past. To think that he was still alive. His life was really quite tough. When they were discussing how to deal with him, the 3 saints all gave a suggestion at the same time. Test him first. Let's see what level that person is at. And since that person was living in the Jun family, then no matter how well he hid, there would always be some clues. So the key place now was the Jun family and the Jun family's mansion. Therefore, Li Yuran didn't even have time to return home. He went to the second prince's place and set up a base of operations. After that, he made arrangements with all the people from the 3 holy lands. Then, on the second morning after he returned to Tianxiang City, he brought the 3 saints with him and went to the Jun family. It was called a visit, and Li Yuran had a very good reason to visit Princess Raimu. Princess Raimu was the emperor's daughter and Li Yuran's former dream lover. Now that she was recuperating in the Jun family, it was not too much for her to visit, right? This reason was completely reasonable and reasonable. So, Li Yuran went all the way. The 3 saints were very cooperative. They actually dressed up as family members and followed behind her. Although Li Yuran looked relaxed on the surface, She was very nervous on the inside. In the past few days, the discussions on the road, as well as the meeting of the Nine Saints last night, had made Liu Ran feel one thing. Master Jun Mo Xie's strength could be said to be unparalleled. No one could deal with him. Chapter 725. Although there were 3 saints working together to protect her, Liu Ran still felt inexplicably unsafe at this moment. This kind of thing was indeed very strange. In Tianxiang, if she had a peak Earth Xian as her bodyguard, she could be extremely bold and do whatever she wanted, not to mention a Tianxian expert. If she had a bodyguard like Tianxian, that would be a dream come true, but now it was really different. There were 3 people who were thousands of times more powerful than Tianxian by her side. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any power in this world that could threaten her, right? But that sense of security that should have been unbridled was nowhere to be found. Don't you think it's very strange when they arrived at the Jun family's door? Liu Ran couldn't help but be stunned. The main gate of the Jun family's residence was wide open, and only 2 bodyguards were standing loosely inside. There was no sign of the strict security that it used to have in the past. They didn't seem to care about the crowd's arrival. Liu Ran handed over the visiting card, and the guard took it and ran to report. After a while, he came back and said, "Master invites young Master Li in." He only invited her in and didn't send anyone to receive her. They didn't even send a housekeeper. Liu Ran's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that the Jun family wasn't very friendly to her. They only invited her in and didn't send anyone to receive her. They didn't even send a housekeeper. Liu Ran's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that the Jun family wasn't very friendly to her. Liu Ran had assumed that the Jun family was putting on a show of weakness when he saw that the Jun family was acting different from before. He had assumed that the Jun family was pretending to be weak in order to make the smart enemy aware of the danger. But the truth was that they were truly weak. This kind of fake and real intertwined, deliberately creating a fake emptiness to cover up the real emptiness. Such an extreme method of putting one's life on the line would instead make the enemy suspicious, and they might even mistakenly believe that the other party had already set up a trap and had nothing to fear. This was the only way to deal with smart enemies. It was also the best way to confuse the enemy when they were really weak and empty. To put it bluntly, it was the empty city stratagem. It was already empty, but the extremely powerful enemy just had to come at this moment. If you forced yourself to be strong, it would instead arouse the enemy's strongest fighting spirit. Once the 2 sides came into contact, destruction would be imminent. On the other hand, if you put on such a fake appearance, it would instead make the enemy suspicious and unable to make a decision. When Liu Ran first arrived, her eyes were filled with the Jun family's lax defense, as if they had no military strength at all. She guessed that old Master Junjian Tian was trying to mislead them, but he didn't say it out loud. Junjian Tian thought to himself, "You, Junjian Tian, have spent your entire life on the battlefield. You may be proficient in tactics, but this young master is not to be trifled with." Didn't this young master see through it in an instant? It could be seen that in the face of absolute strength, this bluff was meaningless. But after that, Junjian Tian did not send anyone to welcome him. Instead, he displayed an extremely strong hostility, clearly telling you, "We do not welcome you." This made Liu Ran a little suspicious. Could it be that he really has nothing to fear? Our side's strength is extremely tyrannical, but what about the other side? Would they have even more tyrannical strength? And at this moment, the 3 saints beside him raised their heads at the same time and sniffed the air lightly. Then, their expressions changed at the same time. To think that there is such pure heaven and earth spiritual chi. The heaven and earth spiritual chi in the Jun family is so pure. I didn't expect that there would be such a place in the mortal world. Even the most abundant spiritual chi in the 3 holy lands would not be this good, right? One of them said in a low voice. The other 2 nodded slightly, and their expressions became even more solemn. This situation should be the result of an unparalleled expert cultivating in the Jun family. Then, every day, he would absorb all the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the vicinity. Thus, all the heaven and earth spiritual chi would gather here. Over time, it formed a vortex of energy field. Even if that person did not deliberately cultivate, the heaven and earth spiritual chi would involuntarily gather here. Only after a long period of time like this could such a thick heaven and earth spiritual chi be formed. Moreover, it would always surround the June family. The three saints were experts in this field. How could they not know such a thing? If there really was an unparalleled expert in the June family, then it would not be surprising for such a phenomenon to occur. However, what really frightened them was the degree of purity of the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the sky above the June family. It was still thick and did not disperse. This was hard to imagine, because as long as the person who was cultivating stopped, even if there was a vortex in the aura field, the spiritual energy would not disperse for a while, but it would definitely not be so pure and dense. If it was said that when they arrived, that person just happened to be cultivating, it would be very easy to explain. But at this time, there were no fluctuations of cultivation at all. Everything in front of them seemed inconceivable. When the three of them entered the range of this heaven and earth spiritual chi, they instantly felt exceptionally refreshed. The degree of accumulation of spiritual energy on such a large scale, even in the supreme golden city where few saints practiced martial arts, it was definitely not as dense as this. And here, they were in the mortal world. In other words, the level of this expert's heaven and earth spiritual chi was even higher than the total amount of heaven and earth saints in the supreme golden city. In fact, it was more than one level higher. This fact shocked them to the core. Although they had not yet met the expert, the three saints felt an inexplicable sense of fear. There is actually such a person in the mortal world. If we fight one-on-one, we are definitely not his match. Even if the three of us work together, we may not have a chance of winning. This person is too scary. Although they were hesitant, the four of them still acted as if nothing had happened. They stepped into the June family's main door and walked towards the main hall. As they walked, the three saints suddenly stopped at the same time. From the direction of the inner chamber, a young girl's crisp voice rang out. "Little White, don't run around. If you run around, I will really hit you. You gluttonous and lazy guy. How did you get so fat? I can't even carry you anymore. How infuriating. If you continue to get so fat, I will abandon you. I don't want you anymore. Don't run, I'm so tired. You are already so fat. How can you still run so fast? Stop." Following the clear and melodious cry, a small white animal suddenly scurried over. It was the size of a lion cub, and its entire body was chubby with snow-white fur. Its eyes were as beautiful as rubies, and it was very cute. It naughtily somersaulted on the ground, and then it ran away like a wisp of smoke. Then a young girl ran out of the inner chamber, panting, "Little White, if you run again, I will—" Li Yuran? How did Little White become Li Yuran? Could it be the legendary Great Transformation? Does Little White have this ability? This was a beautiful young girl who was as beautiful as a precious pearl. Although her face was slightly immature, it was not difficult to see that as long as she was given some time, she would definitely become a great beauty that could cause the downfall of a city or state. Her eyes were like clear water ripples, like a clear spring in the mountains, without any impurities. Her face was white and tender like fine jade. She had a high nose bridge and a small red mouth that was slightly tilted, like a freshly peeled water chestnut. Her dark hair was casually tied up on her head, but it added a bit of vitality and playfulness to a young girl. Her emerald green clothes were very thick in the harsh winter, but she did not look fat at all. She was still graceful, like a willow swaying in the wind. She was like a budding gardenia in the early morning after a spring rain. One look at her was enough to make one feel relaxed and happy, as if he liked her from the bottom of his heart. She was truly a lovable little lass. "So it's Miss Dugu. It's been a long time." Li Yuran smiled and gently bowed. "We haven't seen each other for a long time. Miss, you are really like a pearl. You are becoming more and more charming. Li Yuran, I haven't seen you for a long time. You little hypocrite. Can you stop putting on that fake smile of yours? I feel disgusted when I see you. Do you know that? Look at you. You look like a woman, but you can still smile without showing your teeth. That's a little manly. Not to mention our family's mo, yeah. Any man would be more radiant than you. Ayaya, Li Yuran, you've always been like this since you were young. It really makes my teeth hurt, don't you know, Li Yuran? This young girl was none other than Dugu Xiaoyi. With such a thunderous speech, Li Yuran did not know whether to laugh or cry. It was even to the extent that the three saints were shocked. The moment these words came out, the three saints could not help but raise their eyebrows, feeling that it was somewhat unexpected. Such a beautiful, adorable, and playful young girl. How could she be so fierce when she opens her mouth? She really dares to say anything. Why is the world so crazy now? Young girls like me were all shy and timid, but now it's the complete opposite. Miss Dugu, what are you saying? We are old friends after all. How can this young master bear to belittle me like this? Li Yuran touched his nose awkwardly. Although he was embarrassed, his actions were still dignified and dignified. No one could tell that he was at a loss. Instead, it felt like his every movement was natural and carried a strong sense of nobility. Puffed. Li Yuran, Ayaya, you really want to disgust me to death. Who's an old friend with you? Who do you think I am? Do you think I'm worthy? I don't have time to waste with you. I still have to chase after Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai, don't run. Li Yuran, why did you change these three attendants? Dugu Xiao, he called out to Little White, and was about to leave when she suddenly looked at the three saints behind Li Yuran as if she had discovered a new continent. Her face was full of disdain as she curled her lips and said, "Look at the three people you've chosen. TSK. Why do they look so ugly? Their faces are as rigid as a coffin. I say, young Master Li, even though you're not as good as me, but you're still a young master of an aristocratic family. You should have at least chosen a few decent servants when you're away from home. I really despise your taste. Just these three people. Haha. In our June family, no matter how capable they are, just by looking at their looks, they're born to clean the toilet bowl." Dugu Xiao, he taunted him to her heart's content. Her green robe fluttered in the wind as she finally swaggered off to chase after Little White. Chapter 726. Emptying the toilet bowl, Li Yuran stood there awkwardly, beads of sweat forming on the tip of his nose. If it was him, he wouldn't care. But the problem was, there were three saints behind him. He had been ridiculed in front of his face, and he couldn't even vent his anger. This anger was all because of him. What should he do? He was going to die. Just as he was hesitating, he saw a saint behind him smile and shake his head with a sigh. What a strange little girl, but what a cute little girl. The other two were also uncharacteristically smiling. There was even a hint of reminiscence in their smiles. It was obvious that they didn't mind Dugu Xiaoyi's rudeness at all. In fact, there was even an indescribable sense of joy in their smiles. Li Yuran finally breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that the cultivation of the big shots was indeed different, and they were as magnanimous as the ocean. But he didn't know that the three saints were so shocked that they couldn't speak. This was the second time the saints were shocked since they came to the June family. The source of their shock was definitely not Dugu Xiaoyi, but Little White, that naughty little fellow that had just passed by them. Although Little White's movements were extremely fast, how could he hide from the eyes of the three saints? So the three of them were shocked at that moment. With their eyesight, even if Little White's speed was twice as fast, they would still be able to see its level in an instant. It was a level 8 Xian beast, and a real level 8 peak Xian beast at that. A level 8 Xian beast might be rare in the secular world, and it was a symbol of strength, but how could it catch the attention of the three saints? With the strength of these three people, it could be said that they could crush them to death with a single finger. So what was the reason for the three saints' surprise? Or even shock? The most important thing was that Little White was a level 7 Iron Wing Panther. Throughout history, the limit of an Iron Wing Panther's life was the peak of level 7. However, the Little White in front of them, although still a cub, was at the peak of level 8. They could tell at a glance that Little White was no more than a year old. Moreover, they could see that the reason why this iron-winged leopard was so abnormal was because someone had used a heaven-defying method to forcefully remove its fur and wash its marrow, change its bones, and then solidify its foundation. Practically everything in its body had been replaced except for its fur. That was why there was such a heaven-defying transformation. Although this Little White still had the appearance of an iron-winged panther, its bone structure had already become that of a 9th-level Shin beast, or even higher. A 9th grade bone frame was the limit of a Shin beast bone frame, but Little White had clearly surpassed this limit. If he continued to develop like this, his future would be limitless. He believed that within a few hundred years, another Saint King would appear in the Tian Fa forest. The Saint King, that was an existence that even they, the saints, could not hope to compete with. This was still fine, as this was something that would happen a few hundred years later. After all, no matter how shocking Little White's potential was, its current strength was still very weak. However, what about the person who had caused such a terrifying transformation behind the scenes? What kind of divine power and heaven-defying method was needed to cause Little White to have such a change? At least, the three of them knew that they definitely did not have such a method. Not to mention the three of them. Even if all the saints from the 3 holy lands gathered together and combined all their skills into one person's body, they definitely would not have such a method. This was already not something that a human could have. It was even to the extent that the 3 of them had simultaneously deduced a terrifying fact from this matter. In this world, who would be so bored as to go to such great lengths for the sake of a mere 7th grade profound beast to be reborn? This kind of person, if it was not because he had nothing better to do, then he must be crazy, a complete and utter lunatic. Then, in this world, who would be qualified to do such a crazy thing and possess such a great ability? The 3 of them looked at each other at the same time and saw a name in each other's eyes. It was actually 9 serenities and 14 masters. In this world, perhaps only that complete and utter lunatic, the 9 serenities and 14 masters, would do such a crazy thing. Furthermore, the iron-winged panther's habitat was in the Tian Fa forest. Other than Tian Fa, no other place would have it. And the place where the 9 serenities and 14 masters was sealed was also in the Tian Fa forest. Thinking about it this way, everything seemed to make sense. Only that sealed lunatic, in a situation where he was extremely bored, would think of such a strange method and do such a crazy thing. To cleanse a mere level 7 Shin beast's fur, change its bones, and allow it to easily become the king of beasts? What kind of fantastical thing was that? He really was a lunatic. The 3 of them muttered weakly at the same time. How should they deal with such a lunatic who did not play his cards according to common sense? This was something that would make one's head explode. At this point, the 3 of them were almost 60% sure that the person hidden in the June family was the long-hidden 9 serenities and 14 masters. It was this guy who was stirring up trouble here. What Feng Qin Yang Feng Wuching? It was this fellow who had gone insane from his soul to his body dozens of times, playing tricks in the dark. However, the 3 of them seemed to have figured out the whole situation, and their hearts became even heavier at the same time. Before coming to Tianxiang, the 3 of them had discussed who they would meet on this trip. Would they meet the legendary 9 serenities and 14 masters, or would they meet another expert that no one knew about? It was undeniable that everyone's thoughts were the same. Pray to the gods and pray that they would not meet that lunatic, the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Because if it was him, then this Tianxiang city would really be in a mess. If a fight were to break out, then the entire Tianxiang city would certainly be destroyed. Of the 9 saints who had come to Tianxiang this time, not more than half of them would be lucky enough to return alive. It was even possible that all of them would be wiped out. But at this moment, when they saw Little White, the 3 of them felt as if there was a mountain pressing down on their hearts. A very big mountain. Almost at the same time, The three saints felt a heavy and desolate feeling in their hearts. It's really that bastard. This is really King Bad Luck. It was not difficult to understand why a dignified saint would be able to laugh at such an insult. Little White was most likely the creation of that lunatic, so it was very likely that the owner of Little White was also favored by that lunatic, right? For the time being, it was better to avoid trouble than to endure it. The three saints were very experienced, and they immediately put on a smile that was suitable for the situation and dealt with it perfectly. But they did not know that there was another thing in this world, the Hongjun Pagoda. And the Hongjun Pagoda was even more powerful than dozens of 9 serenities and 14 masters. So, unknowingly, they had raised the strength of the 9 serenities and 14 masters to a level that they could not even look up to. It was a classic case of scaring oneself to the point of paralysis, and these arrangements were made by Grandpa June after June Mo and the others had left, specifically to deal with the mysteries of the experts. At least for now, it seemed that this plan was very successful. Then, the 4 of them silently walked into the hall of the June residence. The chief steward of the June residence, Old Pang, was waiting in the hall and politely invited the 4 of them in. Then, he politely brewed tea for the 4 of them and served them attentively. With the status of the 3 saints' attendants, they should not even have a seat, let alone tea. But Old Pang still arranged seats for the 3 of them. Provoking them once was fine, but provoking them again and again was equivalent to provoking them. But Grandpa Jun John Tian still did not show up. Steward Pang, is old Marshal June here? One of the purposes of my visit to the June residence is to pay my respects to the old marshal. Li Yuran smiled gently and sat upright. She picked up her teacup and blew on the tea as she asked casually, "Aha, young Master Li, my old master has already resigned from his position as Tianxiang's marshal. He is now unemployed and does not dare to be called marshal anymore." Old Pang smiled reservedly and stood straight. He bent slightly, one hand behind his back and the other holding the teapot. He slowly poured the tea into the teacups of the 3 saints in a very standard aristocratic manner. Old Pang was also dressed quite formally today, especially his slick back hair that was dripping with egg white, which gave him the elegance of a modern French gentleman, and that smile of his was also very similar to Li Yuran's. His smile was so graceful and graceful. If only the hideous scar on his face had not destroyed the image that Old Pang had painstakingly created. Jun Mo had copied this set of movements from his previous life's Western restaurant's team master's standard movements. These movements were specifically used to train the maids at home. Old Pang had often been watching from the side, so he had naturally learned them. Today, when he heard that Liu Ran had come to visit, Jun John Tian had specifically told him that every movement must be elegant, solemn, and formal. Therefore, Old Pang had decided to do it himself. In fact, he didn't even hesitate to break 12 eggs. Then, he imitated Jun Mo's method of smearing the egg whites on his hair. In fact, he was very familiar with this set of elegant movements. If this set of elegant movements were done by the maids, then it would truly show off the elegance of their bodies. It would be very pleasing to the eye. However, it was done by Old Pang, who was a boorish fellow. It would be an insult to the person who created this set of aristocratic actions, especially when Old Pang was still feeling very proud of himself. He held his head high and looked straight ahead. His face was full of modesty, but it made the scars even more terrifying. His slick back hair was so shiny that even a fly would sprain its leg if it landed on it. He was like a disfigured Su Wenxiang. Chapter 727. Yeah, so it turns out that Grandpa June is no longer an official. That a good thing. I really admire him. To be able to see through the world's affairs and retreat bravely in the face of a crisis is indeed the nature of a hero. Li Ran gently smiled and gently put the teacup back. Then, he leaned against the back of the chair and said with a smile, "I've just said that one of the purposes of Yu Rant's visit is to pay a visit to the old master. I wonder if Steward Pang can inform him of my arrival?" I really can't help but admire Li Yuren's self-restraint. Even in the face of such a ferocious face, she was still able to smile so elegantly and calmly. She truly has the bearing of an expert. The knife scar on old Pang's face glowed with a ferocious red light, but he still maintained his previous gentle posture and said, "If that's the case, please wait a moment, young Master Li." Then he hurriedly strutted out of the room. This was also part of Jun Moxie's training for his handmaidens. Since old Pang had learned it, he naturally had to do the full set. However, as soon as old Pang took a step forward, a saint could not help but crush the teacup in his hand into powder. He had a strange expression on his face, as if he was about to vomit or constipation, as if he had not had a good time for half a month. He said gloomily, "Li Yuran, is this fellow a man or a woman?" Although he was a bit effeminate earlier, I could still bear with it. But the last few movements of his buttocks really made me. He shook his head and let out a long sigh. A place where evildoers roam is truly a demon. The other two saints nodded their heads in agreement. Clearly, they felt the same way. However, their temperament and self-restraint were slightly better than the former's, so they did not crush the teacup. Li Yuran was also a little surprised. However, he forcefully endured it and frowned. This is Grandpa Jun's housekeeper. In the past, he was a valiant general who accompanied Grandpa Jun to the front lines. If not for the fact that he was always by Grandpa Jun's side, his position today may not be lower than many of the generals in the imperial court. But for some reason, why is he acting so out of character today? How can he be the chief general? The three saints were surprised at the same time. When the generals of your Tian-Xiang Empire charge and break through enemy lines, don't tell me they fight with women in a brothel. Li Yuren almost spat out his tea with a pu sound. The sound of footsteps came from the back hall. They were steady and powerful, not hurried or impatient. Just by listening to the footsteps, one could tell how arrogant and reserved the owner of the footsteps was. Li Yuren and the others sat up straight, with a serious look on their faces. Jun Tian was the only one who knew the ins and outs of the Jun family. As long as one carefully observed Jun Tian's expression, they would be able to see many things. There were even some important matters that didn't need to be seen with one's own eyes. One only needed to glance at the relevant people, and they would be able to see everything clearly. Jun Tian's appearance at this time would be a major turning point in this trip. The previous series of encounters were too much. They had never been so embarrassed in their entire lives. Finally, Grandpa Jun entered the hall with steady and powerful steps. His wise eyes calmly looked at Li Yuran. With a slight "oh," he slowly sat down on the main seat in the middle. He looked at Li Yuran and said, "So, it's you. Haha, how is your grandfather? I heard that you recently left Tian-Xiang to look for a master to learn. I really didn't expect that you would return so quickly. You must have gained a lot, right? Your grandfather Li Shang must be very happy that you have returned so quickly, right?" Li Yuran lowered her head slightly and bowed. "I am indebted to old Master Jun for his concern. It was only after I left that I realized that home is good, but it is difficult to go out. In the end, I couldn't bear to leave home, so I came back. How could I have gained anything in such a short period of time? All my efforts were in vain, and I wasted a lot of time. I have made a fool of myself in front of old Master." Jun Tian laughed and said, "Well, it doesn't matter if you didn't gain anything. Young people always have a lot of time to train. If you know how to miss home, you're a good child. You are worth teaching, huh?" As he said this, his ears seemed to move, but his face did not change. He continued to smile amiably. His eyes, however, did not move as he looked at the three saints. There was a strange look in his eyes as he smiled and asked, "These three are?" Li Yuran hastily replied, "These three people are my attendants." "Haha, old master, please don't laugh at me. Yuran has been living a luxurious life since childhood. So, I've been spoiled rotten. Every time I go out, I don't feel like I'm going out with a few attendants. Manager Pang is too polite. Yuran has given me a seat and tea. Yuran has been lacking in etiquette, huh?" At this moment, the three saints had already moved to stand behind Li Yuran. All of them looked like ordinary people. Even their eyes were somewhat turbid. No matter how one looked at them, they looked no different from the people on the street. The expression in Jun Jean Tion's eyes instantly became playful. He then said meaningfully, "Young Master Yuran is truly fortunate to have 3 such attendants." Although his expression had not moved, his ears had twitched slightly. Even if the movement was subtle and secretive, how could it escape the sharp divine senses of the 3 saints? The 3 immediately thought, there must be another expert who sent a secret message to Jun Jean Tian. He must have revealed our identity and strength. That is why Jun Jean Tian suddenly noticed us. Thinking of this, the 3 of them immediately launched their own divine sense to search. Since there was a secret message, it must be activated by Xian Qi. And when the Xian Qi moved, the spiritual Qi in the air would fluctuate accordingly. This was something that no one could avoid. However, after the 3 of them carefully searched around, they were shocked to find that there was not a single trace of divine sense in the surroundings. There was not even the slightest trace of abnormal spiritual Qi. Although the 3 of them did not reveal anything on their faces, they were even more wary in their hearts. Once there was a secret message, it would definitely be accompanied by a fluctuation of spiritual Qi. We were unable to detect it. This only means that this person is truly amazing. In an instant, he was able to cover up all the abnormalities. Only by doing so can he be so flawless. Just this move alone is already much more brilliant than us. But why did he not come out to deal with us directly? Why did he hide behind the scenes instead? If there was some fluctuation in the air, the 3 of them would not be so suspicious. But because there was nothing, the 3 saints felt that the other party's strength was unfathomable, far above theirs. Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that it was not that they could not detect anything. Rather, there was nothing in this space. The only expert was Grandpa Jun, who was sitting in front of him. A second Great Spirit Xian expert who had just entered the Spirit Xian realm. He was already the number 1 expert of the Jun family, fully deserving of being the pillar of the family. Grandpa Jun chuckled. His ears twitched slightly and his eyes flickered. He stood up and said, "Since you have come to my Jun family, you are my guests. I, Jun Jean Tian, am no longer a marshal or a duke. There is no need for you to be so polite. Please take a seat and talk." Then he turned to Old Pang, who was standing beside him, and instructed, "How can we let our guests stand and talk when our guests are here? What kind of steward are you? Go. There is no need for you to serve us here." Old Pang was a yes man and did not try to defend himself. Instead, he repeatedly admitted his mistake. Then, he shook his shiny, slicked-back hair and walked out with his buttocks swaying like a cat. On the surface, Grandpa Jun's expression did not change. However, Old Pang's few steps had caused his heart to jolt fiercely. If he did not know that this was a matter of life and death, he would have been dumbfounded. But right now, all Grandpa Jun needed to do was to remain calm. Moreover, he needed to maintain absolute calmness. Only then would he be able to deal with this obstacle before him. This was a crisis that could easily lead to the destruction of his family. Grandpa Jun understood this very well. The moment he saw Li Yuran and the 3 saints, he understood. Of all things, you, Li Yuran, should not have brought these 3 people here. They did not look any different from ordinary people. They did not even have the slightest bit of Xian Qi cultivation. This was not fake at all. However, how could these people without any cultivation serve as young Master Li's bodyguards? Who are you trying to fool? This loophole is too obvious. Young Master Li Yuran is a very cautious person. Do you really have the guts to go out with only 3 ordinary people as your bodyguards? Especially at the Jun family. There must be something fishy going on with these 3 people. In this world, it was possible for experts to hide their strength. But no matter how skilled they would not be able to be like Jun Moxie, who could display whatever level he wanted. They would either hide everything or not hide anything. Grandpa Jun was already at the peak of 2nd grade Shenxian. He was confident that he would be able to see through Shun Xian's cultivation at a glance. But these three attendants were obviously ordinary people. No matter how he looked at them, they were still ordinary people. So, Grandpa June immediately raised his guard. There were only two possibilities. First, these three people were ordinary people. Second, these three people's cultivation was much higher than his. It was so high that they could perfectly conceal their strength. So, he could not see through them. Grandpa June did not even think about it, and immediately rejected the first possibility. It must be the second possibility, because others might be able to bring these three people out, but not Li Yuran. So, these three people must be experts, and they must be super experts, super strong experts. Although these three people's every movement, even their eyes and temperament, were no different from ordinary people, they did not look like ordinary servants. Moreover, their faces were expressionless, which made them look even less like ordinary people. Each of them did not have the slightest bit of insight. They did not know how to flatter and serve their master. Such people, even if they were to follow Grandpa June, he would have kicked them out. Li Yuran, who had always been strict and demanding, had actually brought along three good-for-nothings to pay a visit to his house. This was the biggest joke in Tianxiang City. So, Grandpa June immediately recalled his grandson's words. Fake and real, deliberately mystifying. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.